Hello and welcome. And today I'm joined by Nick and Matt from Black Lodge Game. And I wanted to have them on the show because we both try to promote a certain type of play, which I would call like a emergent narrative type of play, I guess. And we both try to promote this style of play on our channel, on our respective channel. But I feel like we often feel like we're preaching to the choir. And I wanted to try to discuss some idea of how to reach out to other people, because I'm sure there's some people out there playing in a different style of play, playing with normies, playing with 99%, like Shona would say, that are unsatisfied with what they get from the hobby, or not completely, like, have this feeling that maybe I could get more, but don't know how to. And if they don't find people that can guide them in the right direction, it's useless. So thank you, Matt and Nick, from joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've been wanting
long
to talk
time
to you for a
coming.
long
Yeah, we
time.
should have.
Big
Yeah,
fans,
Yeah,
yeah,
huge
because
fans.
no, thank you.
huge fans of the
That's
huge man.
the same for me. You know, I quite enjoy your content, and that's the thing. I think we both, maybe not completely the same, but we both have like a lot of similar thing in what we're
Yeah,
trying to promote from the game.
Very
Like,
much so.
yeah, I talk about emergent role play. Would you say like that's a fair characteristic? Or would you call the style of play that you like to enjoy in?
yeah. I mean, I would say we we typically tend to focus on like the immersive aspects of it, but in terms of how the game plays and how the story develops, it's absolutely all about the emergent gameplay. Like not starting with a preconceived script or railroad for the players to go on, but kind of starting with interesting factions and hooks that the players can kind of grab onto and then seeing where that goes, because they always end up doing something wild that you're not expecting. And that's kind of the fun of it. And I don't think that you should not fight that and not fight the player's choices. It's just take them to the consequences of those choices, and that ends up always creating something really, really interesting. And I think more interesting than I can come up with on my own, for sure.
Right, and you put storytelling in its proper place in the cause and effect. It's immersion. This is something a lot of people can't or won't understand when they hear what you and I are talking about. Oh, you're just writing a story.
Yeah.
You're driving the players through your plot. No, the story happens as a symptom of, as a result of immersive.
That drives me
immersive
crazy
gameplay.
when people say that. Oh, you're just like a story gamer. You just want
I
to, like,
know.
no. I want a story to happen, but
Yes.
Right.
I'm a guy that like prep very little.
Yeah,
like, because
same.
I want the story. Like I'm like, as a GM, I like to react to what the player do, what the player bring to the table. Like I'm absolutely like,
How
and
do you not get
as a
this?
player,
Yeah.
I hate people that like, I don't like like being in module when like when a GM come with a story, because I don't want to be told a story. I'm
Yeah.
not there just to be like a spectator. Like, like, oh, I give you a character, now tell me a story with those characters. I don't get how people don't get it. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like
it's really it's kind of crazy, and the term story gaming, I think, is very abused in the kind of circles that we are in, because
used and weaponized
yeah,
in
and
some
because
cases.
story gaming is actually like a literal type of game where you're like taking turns to create a narrative. Like there's a literal, like, the goal is to create a story.
Correct.
And it is a specific type of game, and people tend to conflate that with, if you are in character, then you're doing that. You're trying to tell the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a style of play where the GM tries to tell a story
Yeah.
to the player. That's fucking called railroading.
Yeah.
Right.
That is what it is. And however, like, if you try to say, oh, we're gonna play, like, people that say we're gonna go to this model, in a sense, that's what you're doing as well. Like,
Yeah.
you might be like on a choose your own adventure type of story, but and maybe there's gonna be some improvisation here and there, and some like fill in the blank. But you got this big framework, and I don't even want that, because I want to leave the players the liberty to, they control the protagonist. So in a sense, they control the story.
Yeah.
I control the world. I'm gonna control the antagonist. I'm gonna control the NPCs. But the player should have like a big impact on where the story goes, because the story is the story of those characters that they play.
Right.
That story with
Right.
them.
Right. If it was anything different from a GM's point of view, the experience is much less rewarding and much less interesting, in my opinion, because even if you are able to keep your players on the railroad, if you're doing that worse style, where's the spontaneity? Where's the opportunity to use your imagination in the moment? And conversely, on the player side, I mean, it's self-evident, right? Why would you prefer that? You already know what's going to happen, or you can infer what's going to happen, even if you don't know, the extent of this of the story of the module from the get-go. There are certain dramatic beats and patterns. Okay, at the end of the dungeon, there's going to be something here. It's probably going to be one of three things.
Mm-hmm.
Dramatically, it's appropriate for this to happen. Oh, of course it happened. It's so much better to discover it in the moment on both sides of the table. And I think a lot of times getting bogged down, or the resistance or the accusation that people make to an immersive style, it's purposeful noise, right? Because it's a stupid argument, and people should get it, and they don't. But even that isn't the more fundamental issue, at least from our standpoint. You have to be focusing on the character. You have to be immersed in your character's perspective. What are they doing? What do they want to do? What are they afraid of? All these things are going to happen from this point of view and from no other point of view.
Yeah, it feels like it's a very binary type of thinking, you play one style, or it's just like, and sometimes the thing is true for the other side as well. Like you can just chuck off like, oh, you just want to roll dice and have fun and joke around the table, that might also be reductive on the other side. But because I think like a lot of people are those kind of like binary thinker, like we always see that, like it's always like, oh, if you're not like me, you're against me, or you're like this other like extreme.
Very true.
Like, and I think I made a video about that, like or did I just was a Twitter post, like the RPG third positionist.
Yeah.
That
was a good one.
No, I'm not just like, oh, it's just a game, we just do everything on random table. I'm also not like, oh, I have like this grand story plan that I'm gonna go run you through it. No, like there's another way. There's another
right.
Yes.
And it's not a middle ground between those things either. You're right. It is a third position. It's a different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you because I assume like you both have played for a while. I think you're a bit younger than me both. But when you first started playing, did you like fell into that, or did you like did you come from more the railroad type? Did you come more for the gamist type, and at some point say, you know what, I think there can be more than that? What did you come about?
Well, for me, like I started out when I was really like probably 9 or 10 years old, because my brothers played D&D, my older brothers, and I kind of came at it from the railroad perspective a lot. I wasn't generally playing with them. I kind of inherited the books, and I was definitely trying to get through some sort of like I had a plan for what was going to happen, and that actually worked for me for quite a while. And at one point, I had a group though that I couldn't predict what they were going to do, and every single time that I was like, okay, this is probably what's going to happen in the first scene of the game, they would go exactly the opposite direction in a way that I couldn't have anticipated. And so it kind of sucked, because I was like, I kind of lost my confidence in being a GM for a while. And I finally just kind of gave up and was like, you know what, I'm just going to improvise. I'll just roll with it. And then all of a sudden it was amazing. Like it was a lot of fun. And I found that doing that kind of improvisation was really a lot more rewarding. And a lot of that, I think, came from, I tend to really consume a setting in great detail when I get these games. And usually a game is attracted to me because of the kind of setting and atmosphere it's sending. And the more that I was able to just dive into that. I would come up with my own ideas and whatnot, but it's like Crafty always makes the argument. I think Crossface as well, and I think they're definitely right about this. About you should read the manual and you should know the rules and have good book control. Essentially, you should know where to look things up and all of that. And for me, for the improvisational part of it, that's you should know the setting in and out, because if you know the setting, you're going to be able to react in ways that are plausible with what's going on. So yeah, I definitely was kind of a railroad type of GM very early on, and then for probably the last, I don't know, 15 years or so, it's that went out the window, and I've never looked back.
How about you, Nick?
I got started much later. I started gaming in my mid-20s, right after college, and I got started in, I guess, also that more railroad style. I started with Pathfinder First Edition. I was a player running through modules. Although I will say the GMs I had in that group were very good at taking a premise and leaving it open. Here's sort of the gimmick. Here's the inciting incident, and letting it be, for the most part, open to character choices. So it was a good environment in that regard. When I started GMing maybe a year after I started playing, and I was very caught up in not having a story that I needed to get the players from point A to point B to point C, but I have to pre-plan. I have to have an answer in my head for every permutation of things that the characters can do, and that really,
and that's impossible.
It's impossible. It burned me out. It made me really, really frustrated. And then I saw a lot of videos on YouTube in the what would become, YouTube RPG Brigade, or what have you, videos from the Gentleman Gamer, with WWAD, Runeslinger, a lot of these folks who were also, for the first time in a big online space, talking about these different aspects of play, same old G. And something that I think Runeslinger said this, I think I'm attributing it properly. Something he had mentioned in one of his videos is prepare to improvise. And I think that is an accurate, simple aphorism. I've more or less tried to maintain. Like Matt, I'm very drawn typically to a kind of setting, a particular genre, certainly.
Yeah.
And I want to have a confidence in the world and in the area and in the characters who are going to be where the camera is, and then let the action take place. I can confidently react appropriately, organically, to whatever the characters end up doing, and whatever happens.
Yeah, I think it's and I think a lot of like the resistance, like people that don't want to engage in that style of play, I think a lot of it is like because you have to learn to let go of control. You have to learn, and you have to almost make yourself uncomfortable. But that's true for a lot of things that you want to improve at, that you want to push yourself in life. You have to be able to make yourself uncomfortable. And if you want to become like what I would call a good GM, some people can have like different criteria for that. You need to push yourself at some point. If you want to improve yourself, you need to push yourself, and letting go of this control and saying, it's okay. I don't have all the answer. But that's where you go out to the table with the player. We're gonna figure it out through play.
Yeah.
And absolutely.
And it's also something that you get better at. Sometime you're gonna play that game. You're gonna be you're gonna running a game, and you have to come up with something on the spot. You do, And then after the game, you say, you know what? It'd have been cooler if I come up with that other thing instead. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
But
and
now
have
next
confidence
time,
in what you had in the
Yeah.
moment. There
And also-
are really no wrong answers if you're going into it with this mindset.
yeah, it's like it's gonna be much better if you come up with the wrong thing in the moment than if you try to force the right thing that you pre-plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
100%.
totally.
Yeah, and the next time that a similar situation arises, then now you have this experience, you have this background, you can come up with something better.
Yes.
So I think
Yeah.
that's also a big thing that people need to, let go. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Let in a sense, but also push yourself. It's kind of like this weird dichotomy, I think, or this weird. Would you say that be like why we need to tell GM that are reticent to try this more on the fly type of play?
I mean, I
Yeah.
think you're completely right. I mean, it's. Oh, Matt, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You're right. You have to be willing to put yourself in a difficult situation, and you have to be willing to. What would you say? You have to be willing to still move forward in moments where, I wish I had said this. Oh, I
Mhm.
actually forgot that the NPC had this going on, or the NPC mentioned this thing 7 sessions ago that it actually would have made sense to bring up in this. Don't worry about it. In the real world, you forget things. You don't things don't proceed according to our own plan of action. In the real world, it is realistic to be messy, to be wrong, and if you're putting yourself out there, you will get better, you will get more confident, it will get smoother, and your hiccups will be less noticeable to the players, and there'll be less of a disruption to you. And I would say 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, the players don't know. The players are not concerned with what is concerning you, and usually you're getting in your own way. And that's what stops a lot of people in a lot of ways of improving yourself.
Yeah, and there's also the thing with hiccups as well, is that, like you said, there's definitely been times where a scene has played out and I've been like, oh man, it actually totally didn't make any sense for that NPC to act that way because of XYZ, just like you said. But in some ways that can end up creating more interesting stuff anyway, because after the fact you have it's like, okay, well, what is a plausible justification for why this happened, or what is a more interesting thing that can come from that? So it's not always even a disaster. Sometimes it ends up, making things better.
Yeah.
It's certainly the players. They are always like, man, I should have done this, and it's like, but their choices made something interesting happen anyway. And that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and also like all this, role playing in a sense it's a dialogue like between the players and the GM as well. So it's like when you have a conversation, when you have to figure out something with somebody you don't know, you don't come in with a script, and it's the same thing when you role play.
Right.
And about the don't worry about getting anything wrong, or like, you make a mistake or you forgot something. Don't forget also that if you present your world to the player mainly through character, you don't tell something about your world, the GM telling to the player. It's a character telling to another character. If you focus on that, then maybe the character got it wrong. It's not you, the GM, that got it wrong. Maybe it's the character that got it wrong. So
100%. This is like something very few people talk about. Yes, like anyone can buy the Forgotten Realms handbook, whatever. All the things, if you're doing a published setting. All World of Darkness fans know the Vampire the Masquerade metaplot. Do not present information to your characters that they themselves would not know. And if it's a pre-established setting, make that clear. That should be that's a barrier to entry. If you're not willing to forget the stuff that you, the player, know, like, get out. You're poison to the group.
Yeah. Well, that's always like something like, and I wanted to go into that. I'll come back to that later because I wanted to. Matt mentioned like something that attract him to a game is setting, and I think that's one disagreement that we have because I'm not like I say like what draw me to a game or rules, the system of the game, because I said the system of the game inform the tone of the game. In a sense, I say even much more than the setting oftentimes, because you can play like two games. I always take the example. If you play like Warhammer Fantasy or D&D, the settings are very similar in a sense. It's a kind of medieval fantasy, whatever. But the rules of those two games make that the game and the tone of the game become very different. So for me, that's why I say like it's the tone, is the rules that attract me more to a game, and also the setting. When I start a campaign, I like to keep the setting very light. I'm gonna have like an idea of like like what the world is and a conflict that is happening in the world. Bigger conflict that the player are not gonna interact directly with usually at the start. They might grow up to that later on, but something kind of in the background that happen. And oftentimes I go with, like I like those concept of it's X but Y. You know what I mean? So you take something that we're familiar with, and then you put one twist on it, and you keep the thing like generally vague. So that's also something that we discover through play with the player, and I let the player like contribute something to, like it doesn't matter like what the big city near, like how many city there is in this continent, or you know what I mean, and what their name and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter until it becomes relevant in play, and then we can just like make it up.
Yeah, so a couple things. I agree with you, like the kinds of details of like the population of this city is 500,000 and the ethnic breakdown is this, blah blah blah. Like I really don't care too much about that sort of a thing. What I'm for me, the setting is I want to know what the genre is. And what you're saying about the rules definitely I think is correct in this in the sense that like the rules of the game are going to define what your characters can literally do in the game. And if they can jump 30 feet in the air, that does definitely imply something about the setting that you're in. But I think that at least from my perspective, the best games, the setting and the rules kind of inform each other. Because I don't think that you're necessarily pulling, like when someone designs a rule set, even if they said like, I'm just going to start with rules, I'll come up with the setting later. They're pulling concepts that we're familiar with, like jumping and, or if you're like, we have rules for melee combat, you're going to be using swords. That does already sort of draw on concepts that we know from externally. And so they kind of should be, it's like, I don't think you can put one in front of the other.
Well, there's always kind of like implied setting. What I don't like is like the explicit setting, like, oh, this is the king of this place, and this is what happened in the past. Like you know what, that we'll figure out to play. You know what I mean? We'll make it up as we go.
And it's definitely there's a lot of games that the rules and the setting they clash. Like I love the World of Darkness games, but the rules don't. If you have 5 dots in something, that's supposed to be like peak of human ability, and it doesn't play out that way with the dice. So
and I would say that this is a matter of taste and not a disagreement per se, because I think, broadly speaking, when we're looking at a game or thinking about running a game, I think we are trying to get to more or less the same direction here. But as Matt said, both the setting and the rules are very important. One does inform the other, and vice versa. It's a matter of what's your starting point. What are you temperamentally more drawn to? With the mechanics, you are going to get a more subtle picture of what the broad themes of the game are going to be through what the players can do and what the rules say can happen in this world, in this setting, and how you're interfacing with those rules, how frequently you're interfacing with those rules, are giving you a glimpse into what actual play might be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at the setting first, if you're drawn to that more, at least I would say from Matt and I's perspective, you're looking at the genre in a more clear, vivid detail. It's more readily available to you. Okay, it's fantasy. What kind of fantasy? Warhammer Fantasy is a very particular kind of fantasy. Lord of the Rings is a very particular type of fantasy. Traveler or Vampire the Masquerade. Okay, got it. Vampire the Masquerade, we're going to be in a city, staying in a city. Okay, that tells you already something quite clear.
Mm-hmm.
And you get story hooks and ideas come to mind of, I think, a number of very particular things or types of things which can happen in play. But they're both, Matt and I are both looking at the system as well as the setting. But I think we just come at it from a different, sense of taste.
Yeah, and one last thing on it too is that a part of this is sort of a laziness on my part, because I don't. I used to love coming up like homebrew settings and everything like that. I loved doing that, but I don't have kind of the mental energy or the time to kind of dedicate to that in the way that I like to do. So for me, it's like if I can get an off the shelf setting that someone else has done that's like really well written, I get very attracted to that because I feel like a lot of the heavy lifting is already done for me.
Yeah, the problem I have with that, and like I want to say also, like, obviously when you look at a new game, there's always like the broad stroke of the setting is always going to be the first thing you see. Say, oh, this is a game in the world of Zorro. Okay, now I have an idea what it is.
Yeah,
but, I don't need to give me all the detail, all that. Like, that's what I mean. Like I said, like setting, I don't care too much. Like tell me like what your game's about, what your game has been designed to do, and then I'll check out the rules and I'll figure out like, the world work in this way by the, like, I like when the rules inform the, like, when the rules inform actually the setting. And you mentioned like Vampire was always had a big clash back then in the 90s, that it was supposed to be like this dark, emo, broody kind of, but people would play it like a superhero game because that's what the rules told you to do, basically.
Right.
There was like there was a misalignment, and it wasn't the setting that was wrong. It wasn't the rules that were wrong. They just weren't a good match, maybe for one another.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But they're both very important. System and setting. And we've said before, system absolutely matters. Even if like you were saying, Warhammer or the Warhammer world. There's a number of different fantasy settings, fantasy worlds that I find interesting. I would be open to playing a character in that world. I have no desire to play to use 5th edition mechanics or any D&D mechanic for that matter in any of them, because I don't think the D&D mechanic encourages anything immersive or interesting at all.
we can talk about that later on. Like Charlotte was saying earlier, usually things that call themselves story games tend to fall into the metaplot trap. Lots of contrived outcome to force a specific vision. I don't like metaplot. I don't know. I think you might be more interested in them, or more like tolerant of them.
I am tolerant of metaplot for games that I have nostalgia for. I really don't like it generally, though, in anything else.
Right.
Like, I can handle if you have like a timeline of events of like, this is a possible timeline that you set your game within. But when it comes to games like Vampire, it was literally like the setting got advanced and the timeline got advanced every supplement that came out. And I really, really hate that. I want the game to just be playable with just basically the core book. I like having supplements and things like that, but I really, really disliked that. And it's one of the reasons that I actually really liked the the New World of Darkness, which everyone hated when it came out, was because they completely threw metaplot in the trash, and it was just this kind of like sandbox, dark sandbox that you could play in. And I really, really liked that a lot more because I felt like I had a lot more freedom, and I didn't have this overbearing lore. And this is what Nick was saying earlier, is that the people who've been playing Vampire forever, they know everything about every piece of lore in that game, and so there's no mystery that can kind of come out of that. Yeah. And so I like games that have a lot more blanks left in there for you to fill. I want inspiration and like good premises for things, but I want them to be vague enough that anyone who's taking that plot hook and running it in their game is going to come up with something different. But yeah, I don't like, that's even one of the things in Exalted Second Edition. By the end of that game line, it was becoming metaplot heavy. There was like they took one story hook and ran with it, and that was kind of the end of that that game, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I see that. Like, I'll be like, I'm not a big fan of the idea either. Like, if you want to give like some background story, that's fair, I guess. I can always like ignore it.
Yeah. Or if you're doing something in a historic setting, like Pendragon is a good example of this, the Great Pendragon campaign.
Yeah.
Here are the chain of events that will happen from, what is it? Is it from the death of Uther? I don't remember, but from Uther Pendragon.
A bit before the death of Luther, yeah.
Yeah. In the absence of the player character's involvement, these are the big tentpole events that will happen in history.
Yeah.
They are not set in stone.
But that's the thing. I'm a big advocate of Pendragon. It's one of my favorite games. I like playing it, but I've been playing it for a long time. The first time I tried to do the Great Pendragon campaign was last winter, and I've been playing. I've been involved with this game for 20 years.
Yeah,
nice.
But it's just because I don't care for it. You know what I mean? Like, I like the system. I like the tone that it is. I like the fact that everybody's gonna human knight. Because it's always like the one thing I say is I also I'm not a big fan of setting. I don't care much about setting usually because I like my setting more mundane because I want you to focus on your character. I want the character to be the focus of the story. I'm not there I see a lot of people and you see that in cheap movie sci-fi and fantasy movie. The story just become a vehicle to showcase you the world. If somebody that was a world builder created an imaginative world, and now let's put some story in there so I can expose you to this world. I hate that.
Yeah, me too.
Tell me about character. Yeah, and that's the thing. Also, Matt was saying about somebody did the heavy lifting with those settings. I think so many, if they're well thought out, I feel so few setting are well thought out. A lot of them are fucking retarded.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Many such cases.
Yeah. And to loop back onto the question regarding or the comment regarding story games, I would actually be harsher on story games. I think falling into a metaplot trap is one of the better outcomes for a story game. Yeah. I think the real pitfall of heavily story focused games, more than metaplot, you're getting so bogged down in play with procedure, with being hyper focused at all times on dramatic beats, specific dramatic actions that the player can choose to make for the character. Because from my perspective, the focus, those games encourage you implicitly or explicitly to view your character as this construct that you're moving and manipulating to make this larger dramatic piece, which is completely wrong in my view. And so you have a lot of story games are rules light, but you get so caught up interfacing with them so often and for so long, it becomes a dialogue, an out of character dialogue. Okay, I'm going to do this now because of this. Can I do this? Because of this, I have these many bennies or these many, you know,
Yeah.
I have this character move that
Yeah.
my archetype can make in this case. Okay, I do that dramatic maneuver. That causes one of 3 effects to happen because that's dramatically appropriate. I can't stand it.
Yeah,
You're not even getting to a meta plot. You know what
It's
I
like
mean?
the gamification of like narrative. Like it's
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was in particular recently Dungeon Craft had might have been his daughter or someone, I don't know, but she came on and talked about it was like the Jane Eyre or Jane Austen
Yeah.
RPG. And it's talking about, okay, and then we go into the phase where we all spread rumors about each other.
Yeah.
And then we go to the phase where this happens. And I'm like, this sucks. First of
Yeah.
all, like everything
Woman
about it
role-playing
sucks, but like I
games.
would never like this is not how people function. You know, it's like I want to play these games because I get to, you know, inhabit the skin of another person and try to act as that person plausibly would within the circumstances of the world. And if it's like, okay, now like we've advanced, you know, it's like the next phase of initiative is the spreading rumors part of initiative. You know, it's like it doesn't it doesn't even make sense. That's not even how
I'm not a person, you know, initiating new subroutine.
That's correct, Charlotte. Jane Austen RPG. It has been done, but they make those game like almost like very much like a game. You know what I mean? Like role-playing games
Yeah.
are games, but they're very different type of game. It's not like a board game. No, it's like a.
Right.
It's really like they're trying to regulate everything. Like, and maybe it's like a crutch for people that don't role play.
I think it's overly proceduralized in a lot of
Yeah.
cases because most people are dumb as fuck and have no interest or capacity to really engage with anything.
Yeah, like they don't want to role play, so they need to be like, you know, you cannot just tell them like if you give them freedom, they don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like with a movie. Like I just want to switch my brain off watching the movie.
Exactly.
I just want
Right.
to switch my brain off playing the game. I want the thing. I want the thing to happen.
And in my opinion, role-playing games, that's not the like you can't do that. That's the antithesis of the experience. Like
No,
your
exactly.
brain is on the whole time.
And it's on an override, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You like you get it on like as much as you can, because you also like try to, like I always say, you try to hijack your own mindset, your own thought process.
Yeah.
With the thought process of your character, you know, you don't think as yourself anymore if you can reach that level. And I think a lot of people that because actually some player that say like, you know, I enjoy those games that are more of a railroad. I think that's what they want as well. They just want to sit there, turn their brain off, like, you know,
they want to
watching
get on a
movie.
roller coaster basically, and
right. They want to be
moved.
entertained.
Yeah,
exactly. They go there to be the audience,
right.
Yeah. And once in a while, the GM is going to tell them to roll a die, and then they can do that. And you know,
and then
this is also
claps.
why Critical Role is so popular. I think it's part of the reason. They have, you know, they capture lightning in a bottle. They got voice actors and improv people who are good enough at what they do. Are also certainly not at the time. We're not big names. You're not getting Brad Pitt.
Zombie players.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's entertainment, and that is what a huge swath of the so-called RPG player base really wants.
Yeah, and I guess that is a really good point, because I hadn't thought of, like, in terms of Critical Role and those styles of show, like, yeah, obviously that is entertainment, but I hadn't really thought about the fact that players just want to sit down and be entertained, because that to me is like, I don't know, that's a very foreign thing for me with this, because it's like, it will be entertaining. I will be entertained, but that's not the goal. The goal is like, I'm getting in and I'm doing something, you know, like I'm actually engaging with it. And that's the cool part of it, is that it's not passive. Like, that's the attractive part of it, is that I am in it, and I am making things happen, and I am changing things, and the world has to react and bend to me, and I have to bend to the world occasionally. And it's not just sitting down and watching a movie. And I like sitting down and watching a movie, but it's a totally different experience.
And I think this is a large part of what the bugs mean when they say fun. That's I want to just be entertained.
Yeah.
I want to be free to fuck around, to be out of character, and guffaw at the hijinks.
Mhm.
Make 80s reference.
Make
Yeah.
80s reference.
Or
Remember this.
put
Yeah.
Muppet in my game.
Yeah. Oh man. That was like that was when we kind of decided we were like, we've mined everything we need to mine out of the OSR content. Like I think
Yeah.
we're done talking about this now.
Yeah.
But no further wisdom can be extracted.
Because I think like that's the thing with role playing game. I said earlier, like they're very different experience than
Mhm.
other games, but I should say they can be very different experience than other game, because some people will play them like video games, some people will play
Yeah.
them like board game, like war
Right.
game, stuff like that. But I think if you're doing that, like, yeah, you could play a war game, you could play a board game, you could play a video game.
Yeah.
There's something you can get from a role-playing game that you cannot get from all those other genre, and it looks like some people are afraid to go and touch it, or maybe they're just not interested. Like, I don't fucking care, and what's on my table. But in my opinion, they're shortchanging themselves.
Yeah, for sure. They're
yeah.
definitely shortchanging themselves, and I think some of it comes from it is kind of a fear of touching it, because we've talked about this a lot, where like with people accusing us of being actors and all this stuff, is that you do kind of put yourself in a vulnerable position when you're doing these things,
Yep.
because you're pretending to be someone else, and I think people feel like they're gonna feel silly doing it, and
it is a bit silly.
it is a bit silly.
We're
Yeah,
all there together to do the same thing.
right, exactly. And if you're all on the same page about that, then you can put a little sincerity into it, and you'll get much
Mhm.
cooler, interesting, and more fulfilling results out of it that way. And I feel like every time I start a new game, when I'm running a game, even, I feel silly about it, and it feels a little uncomfortable. But if you push past that, it gets great, and like there's not really a substitute for it out there.
Yeah. Just some chat there, like Guardian of the Rune say Axe, Adventure Conqueror King Systems, and WFRP both have detailed economy. I think this is very important. I think for the longest time I overlooked Axe as just another
Yeah.
OSR, but the more like I hear about Macris, or I talk to Macris, actually
Yeah.
I think like he did made some effort to kind of fix some issue in the game. So I think that's
Yeah.
a very good.
I'm really excited for the
very
second
excited
edition.
for the
Yeah,
second
me too.
edition. Yeah.
And Arman was saying running a metaplot narrative usually ends up with the GM giving a lot of cutscene. It is just horrible. I hate those. That's also a big thing I'm about. Like I always say, like epistemology and RPG. Like your characters know what he knows because he lived in that world, not because the GM told the player.
Yeah.
That's and when you have those cutscenes, like how do you know that?
Yeah.
Also, I also hate the cinematic language in game, like fade, like, well, we say fade to black when like, but
Mhm.
I hate when they actually say it. Like I understand what a fade to black is, but don't fucking tell me like we're gonna fade to black. The camera zoom in. Don't fucking talk to me about like camera placement. The camera is my fucking character eye. That's the only
Yeah.
camera I have. It doesn't zoom in. It doesn't. Like I'll go look at something.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a little
Yeah.
side rant there. Or do you use those? You better not now.
I think Nick does.
I
Not to the
use
extent of like zooming on things, but
no. I mean, generally, like the first scene of the first session. I think a lot of times I've just to establish the scene, sort of where we are.
Yeah.
I describe briefly. What like session 1 of Cyberpunk. I had a description of Night City, or not Night City, Miami, the cyberpunk world, the street, the grime, the activity, the violence going on, to paint a brief picture. Okay, this is where we are. Now we're seeing. Okay, we begin. All right, I think I started with you. Boom.
Yeah.
We're in your office. This is what's going on. Take it away. And it's just player or character actions at that point.
Yeah, and I think like transitions between scenes would be like, the scene shifts
Yeah.
to this, Yeah.
Right.
But those are like establishing shots, just like the player know where
Exactly.
we are, and that's all right. It's a different matter.
Yeah.
Like it's just like
Right.
it's just like some people like use that like as a like I'm
The
trying
camera
to immerse
follows
myself
the
in
arrow as it
Camera-
pierces
yeah,
into the
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to immerse myself in the world, not in like a TV show of the world.
The lights dim.
Mhm.
They zoom in on his eyes,
Yeah.
furrowed in great actor drama.
Yeah, it's or record scratch, and
Yeah.
you just fucking took me out. It's like
Yeah.
okay, we're not there. Yeah, I know I'm not there. I'm not mentally ill, but I want not in that sense, but
Yeah.
I want. Yeah, and you mentioned a bit like a Critical Role, and we talked about the video game as well. And I think this is one topic I wanted to talk to you about before we go in the main topic. Like, I invited you to talk about something specific, but
That's how it goes
there.
with us.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
so
narrowing
it's all
in.
good.
Yeah.
See, we're discovering.
We'll deploy the X
discovering
card if we
story
need
together.
to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. But like, because like people talk about the Critical Role, and it's a lot of people are new to the hobby and came through discovering the hobby like through Critical Role. A lot of people are new to the hobby from they've played video game before. Now, like it used to be like the first. I remember like when I was young, we would have those new video game. It's like playing Dungeon Dragon but on the computer. But now it's the other way around. It's like playing Baldur's Gate 3 but with pen and paper.
Yeah.
But I always say, like, you look at what Matt Mercer is known for, like his catchphrase is like, "What do we want to do?" Or no, actually, his catchphrase is like, "You can certainly try." That's what I was looking for. You can certainly try. That's an answer to, "Can I do this?"
Yeah.
And that's the first experience. And like those players ask them to do role. They ask, and that has never been corrected. That has never been like And that's the first experience that people have. And what I'm going with there is like, I want to talk about the state of the discourse in the hobby in general. Like when you look like at GM advice from those kind of people, like Matt Mercer had this series of GM advice, or you look at I always forget his name, from How to Be a Great GM, the South African guy. Or you look at
I'm sure I've seen it, but I can't place it.
Oh yeah. Or you look at Professor Dungeon Master.
Yeah.
You look at those people, or Ginny D. Why not?
Yeah.
Our queen.
You look at you look at those people giving advice, and sometimes I do that when I'm about to make a video on a topic. Sometimes I do go look at what other people, what the mainstream say, like what the normies say about this topic, and it's always like, almost always like trash advice,
Yeah.
And they repeat the same thing.
Sorry, Matt, you wanted to say something.
No, please go ahead.
Go ahead, Nick.
So I've been thinking a lot about this recently, because yes, 98% of all the content, all the advice, quote unquote, is absolute trash. It's not helpful. It's not interesting. But more to the point, it's like masturbatory. It's cyclical. Like how long have RPGs been a thing? Like over 40 years, 50 years
almost. Yeah,
50 years almost.
50 years. Let's say we're still having discussions about what is role play, what like day one questions. People say, you hear
they get it wrong every time.
wrong every time. But the fact that the conversation is still stuck on these basic questions, like 50 years after movies were invented, they were in a astronomically more advanced place than they are right now. And I sometimes hear people say, well, the hobby is so new, we're still sort of figuring out these questions. I disagree.
That's crazy.
I disagree completely. The reason why, in part, I think the reason why RPGs have sort of always kind of stagnated where they began, and the quote unquote, I'm not going to use the word progress. That's
Yeah.
we hate progressivism. But any sort of advancement in thinking about things differently or how to do things better or more efficiently, it's so stifled. I think in large part has to do with the unique medium of tabletop role-playing games. With a movie, with a play, with a painting, even, these things are disseminated out and consumed by an audience. People talk about them in the world. Mm-hmm. The actual experience, the actual play, the activity of gaming is isolated to your own table. It's not out there for anyone else to see, to consume, to talk about, to commentate on, to critique. And I think because of that, you've seen increasingly more and more over the years and over the decades a very strong disconnect. You can put out or read the most well-written, evocative, thought out game mechanics in a book, and the game can be just as dog shit as the worst gaming store D&D 5th edition game. Mm-hmm. Why does that happen? I think it's because it is by its nature so insulated. And I've actually thought about, I don't like Critical Role, but I've recently wondered myself, is perhaps Critical Role, as stupid as it is that actually part of what is necessary to have dialogue, admittedly, it's one example of one group playing a game, have it be consumed by so many different people and transform that into actually meaningful change, meaningful, I'm going to say progress, but you know what I mean I know what you I didn't. Matt and I we had a video on. We've talked about the race to the bottom.
Yep.
Mentality, right? Which is out in abundance, because everyone is just playing the game in their own table. You're not charging an audience for it. There's no stadium tickets. There's no box seating to view these things. There's been I would say a resistance at best and an antagonism more accurately against any kind of striving or quality or excellence in your actual gaming sessions. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling at this point.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm kind of two minds with Critical Role, because it's like, I do think it's like, it's dumb. It's mostly like, if not scripted, at least they have a structure.
Partially, yeah.
They have
it's prompted, if not scripted.
Yeah. And all of that. But at the same time, like, what they're doing, yes, it's entertainment. It's not actually playing the game.
Right.
At least not anymore. It probably was them playing the game earlier on.
Before they knew what they had.
Yeah, but I don't know. It is closer in my mind to actually what we like to get out of our table, which is basically like people being in character and, like these kind of stories emerging and things like that. Like the kind of the thing where everyone is all of the players are focused in and they're trying to play a character. I think that most people before Critical Role, a lot of people never saw that and never saw that even as like an avenue that they could pursue. Which is sad, first of all, because that's like my first thought, upon seeing the covers of the AD&D 2nd edition books, that art was just like, I want to do that. Like that's like this, that's making my imagination kind of like set on fire like that. So I don't know, but the thing is, it has been, I think, very destructive, because people then expect that their game is going to be this high quality, polished, story thing that's being done, when in reality that's not what the game is. It's like you are consuming what is explicitly a piece of entertainment for you, as opposed to engaging in this actual activity, which can have these incredible moments of spontaneous emergent story and this crazy level of immersion where you feel like you're there, but it's not. I'm still not sure what I think of Critical Role. As a whole, it's like there's parts of me that's like, some of it's been positive.
Not enough time has passed for us to know the second and third order effects.
But there's also an enormous amount of cringe on those shows. Like I tried watching that Candela Obscura thing. Their new, it's bad. It's really bad.
And that's the thing too, like Critical Role, like they focus a lot, in my opinion, on the wrong aspect. Like, like the people like say, oh, that's an entertaining show, but like they don't role play in a great way, that in what I would call like really role play. Like they do the Mother May I question. Right. They often talking outside the character. They make those joke at the table.
Yeah.
Like they have like this high production value. They are charismatic people. They are they can do like the voices and shit like that. Sometimes they fucking do like those annoying fucking voices as well, like this Laura Bailey girl. Like, I don't hate her. It's the one of the group that I hate the least. But she was doing like this fucking annoying voice for one of her characters.
I know which one you're talking about.
Like,
I thankfully
the whole fucking game,
Yeah.
But so yeah, they focus on all, instead of like improving their interaction with the game, their immersion and stuff like that. They're focusing on those. Instead of focusing on the substance, they're focusing on the appearance.
Yeah, they're focusing on the appearance and the theatricality of them talking to each other in character, as opposed to actually doing things in character, because they're never making the sorts of choices in that game that anyone at an actual table plays at, even in a very silly table.
Right.
Like the people tend, at least the games that I've played in, they tend to take risks, like big risks, and do things that are kind of out of left field. And part of that is because it's not you that's going to die. It's your character may die, and people often care about their characters, but there's a level of they're not making actual meaningful choices in that game. They're play acting this kind of
It's really
Armin said Critical Role can be a good example of playing being proactive to the events and being responsible for their own immersion. I guess at least we can give them that.
Yeah.
That the player are just not sitting silent at their table. They are like, I guess, like they're not the worst player you could have. And a lot of them, I think a lot of them, like being actor and shit, being actual actor and shit, they have this tendency to try to steal the spotlight.
Yes.
But since there are all that, it can kind of work, Having one of those guys at your table would be awful. Having a table of all those people, I guess maybe you can.
You could make do with it.
You can make it work.
Yeah, for sure.
About to say?
I mean, it's a weird thing, right? Because in the same moment, I think Critical Role, it's on the one hand the biggest and best example of immersion and sincerity in an activity with regards to the tabletop gaming hobby. On the other hand, it's also all meta. It's not I'm role-playing the character. Isn't it fun that I'm putting myself so deeply in this character? It's very ironic.
They're role-playing role player.
Yeah. The role-playing role player. And I'm not sure if it's chicken or an egg. It's a chicken or an egg situation, how I'm thinking about it right now. But again, going back to the fact that gaming as an activity has been like so self-contained and incestuous in a way by virtue of just how it is. There's no audience that consumes it.
Yep. Like you said, very insular.
Yeah, and it's like I can't even blame anyone for that. It's just it is the way that it is, but that also means that of course something as sort of weird and mutated as Critical Role being the first real mainstream example of this activity, this art form, which is not a fucking art form, I would say, but but this thing, it would have to be sort of this sort of bastard child. Also, this is sort of a new thing that's being put out into the mainstream in a hellish age where no creativity can, I mean, there's also that anything that's created that is mass market appeal, either explicitly or by catching lightning in a bottle, it has to be perverse and like just trash content because of the state of affairs we're in right now.
I wanted to go back also on what you said about like the you made a comparison with the movie industry. I think like you say, like the role playing is very insular because like the experience we have at the table, and especially like in the first years, we didn't have internet, we didn't have like video available and stuff like that. We would get those books, and the first book were fucking written in the cryptic way. It's this new thing. It's unlike most thing that we know.
There's nothing to compare it
and we have to interpret it, and then we can like how do you deal with that? How do you understand this rule? And then we kind of figure out, we've been like given those books and we try to figure out our way in this hobby with them. But every time, like the experience at every table is self-contained at that table, and it's different from table to table. When a movie is made, everybody can watch the movie. Everybody watch the same movie, so we can talk about it and we can say like, oh, this movie was better than this one. We can compare more easily. But it's hard to compare. Like, I cannot compare the experience I had at my table with the experience that you had at your table.
No knowledge is transferred.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's no shared collective experience.
Exactly. So I think that armed the discourse quite a bit. And we don't have like theory. We don't like even if you compare to video game, because video game is much more regiment. Again, everybody's gonna have like more or less the same experience because everybody gets the same fucking game. But we see, if you look at the YouTube content about video game, there is this niche that people are gonna dissect video game and talk about it, go a little more in depth and stuff like that. In the role-playing game, we don't have that. Like I said, it's people repeating the same advice,
same fucking stuff
that has been repeated like for decades, and review, and it's just gonna say, oh, I like this game. No, the art is very nice, the book is well made. Can you tell me more about the rules? Can you tell me more about why you like the game? Can you tell me more about how this rule affect the tone of the game? There's no depth there. I find like it's so lacking.
Yeah, and part of that I think is that they're just like they're trying to cast the widest net possible to get kind of normie views, and I don't blame them for that. But there is a lack of depth on this, and I don't know what the only answer that I have for that is that people like us need to make content about it. Because it's never, you're never going to get, Ginny D getting the, the Reformed Church of Immersion.
Right. Will never be base.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's like what you said with video games, like, yeah, you can have people dissect these things, but it's like you can dissect that video game, you can show video of it, and everyone else has played that video game, and like you probably have different experiences within it, but it's such a well-defined thing because it's not simply happening in your imagination that people can play a game and they'll immediately know what you're talking about in a specific section or a level or a certain mechanic in that video game, whereas it's much more difficult with role-playing games because it is all in the imagination and everyone is visualizing things completely differently. People interpret the rules differently. Like the game doesn't, it's exactly like what you said. The game doesn't play the same table to table because everyone's playing it differently. Whereas a video game, it's the same code running on the same, relatively the same machine. And that's a much more well-defined thing to consume.
Yeah. I mean, we've you and I, Matt, we've talked about this with regards to videos we want to make, talking about games we know, games we come across. Yes, the art, the layout, whatever. Fair enough to talk about, but how do these rules, encourage or discourage immersion, role play? Does the setting make sense? Is it overly cumbersome that prohibits you from getting into character because you're bogged down with facts that don't matter or are tedious to keep in mind? You're right. No one is going to make this content except for people like us who actually have a strong opinion, and strong opinions are the antidote to the poison of the modern age.
Even if those opinions end up being wrong on one side or the other, I am much, much more interested in someone who has a very strongly held wrong opinion than someone who has no opinions, and because a lot of that stuff, it is like, oh, well, it's whatever you want to do at your table. No, I mean, this is even why, like, we were, we got interested in talking about like the BroSR stuff, is like they have very strong opinions and very clear ideas about what they want to do. And we disagree with a lot of it, but at least they have ideas, like this is one of the things that we've,
and they're not like mealy mouth about it. It's not like, well, whatever's fun for your table,
right. No, they are happy to say that you're doing it wrong.
Right.
I can at least respect that.
Yeah. In a world of, in a sea of weakness. I have to respect that, even if they are so fucking wrong.
But it's
no.
I was gonna say, it's kind of one of the reasons that like we've focused on the OSR stuff so much in the last couple of months, was that it's like there are a lot of people that are very opinionated and have strongly held opinions about ideas, whereas like you look at like normie 5e D&D stuff, it's like, what am I going to argue with these people about? Like these
people don't know or believe anything.
There's nothing. Yeah, it's like they don't have. There's nothing there, and which is unfortunate. And that is what people, I think, need. We are going to be engaging more on the kind of normie side of things at some point soon, but it's just for anyone who has kind of consciousness, I guess. That stuff's not very interesting, But I guess people just eat it up. It's really weird.
Yeah, no, and a lot of it, like, it's like it's often like there's normie content, like you said, like it's, and like you're right, like the BroSR, at least they have ideas that are different, and they have takes that are different. You can look at this, say, you know what, that's interesting what you're saying. Let me think about it if that's valid, and then you say, well, no, that's for me, whatever, it's like, whatever you want to call it. But like the 5e crowd, you listen to them, and it feels to me, I cannot say that for sure, that it's just like they're not idea that they came up with, they're just like idea that they picked up at some place, like somebody said, like somebody at some point came up with this advice, and then you heard this advice, and then you repeat this advice, and then you pick up like somebody come up with a different advice, and then you integrate that, and it snowball, and they always, like you mentioned, like on a cycle, they always like repeat the same thing, like, oh, here's a 10 thing to make your player care about your game, and then like it's all like,
right, they're not the thoughts of people, they're
exactly,
they're regurgitations of
it's like they've been programmed into those like YouTuber NPCs.
It's like something that like a marketing agency would come up with. This is how you do it, and it's like it's totally meaningless. And I hate that stuff so much.
Right.
And sometimes I see like a wrong advice. At some point, like a few weeks ago, we were kind of on Legion of Myth doing a review of an advice video by Chris Perkin, right? Big GM at Wizard of the Coast, stuff like that. Like, oh, he's the guy, right? But all his advice was fucking trash tier. But in a sense, in a cynical way, I can say like, yeah, but I can see why he would want to teach people to play wrong, because he wants to keep them dependent on buying the book and buying the module.
I don't even think they're that Machiavellian. I think all the people who are making it, they're all just as dumb as the rest of them.
Maybe.
I would not even give the credit to these so-called humans who work at these big box gaming companies. These are exactly the same people you see in any white collar or corporate
well, yeah, that's the thing, and we've talked about this before too, is that people, for some reason, they still want Wizards of the Coast to like get their stuff together and make good products again, and it's like that is an environment in which it is impossible to do something creative or push boundaries. They are working in a corporation that has empty platitudes, that a consulting firm, exactly, that is exactly correct, and that's where they work, and that's the kind of, that organization is hiring people that are going to do this exact sort of thing. So there's no hope on the corporate side from any of this. And
correct,
that's the thing, when these games were made, none of these companies were big like this. They were all these tiny little weird creative startups. There's actually, it's the best thing Wizards of the Coast has put out in a long time. There is a movie called Eye of the Beholder. It's a documentary just about the art of D&D over the decades, and it mostly focuses on the 80s, when the art was good, and then they spend about 10 minutes at the end talking about third through fifth edition. But they describe the environment of working at TSR and what that was like, and it was like these guys had essentially total freedom to do whatever they wanted. They obviously, they had assignments they had to work on. They would pick, whether it was art or you're making maps, or you're working on things, you had deadlines and you had to deliver, but you got to work whatever hours you wanted. People, it was like you're just walking around talking to each other, and you had this big creative freedom that is not at all the sort of thing
complete antithesis of the
complete antithesis of what working, like they didn't have an HR department. Like there's none of that.
Right.
So it's not an environment that is even possible to create that sort of stuff. And the kinds of people who are doing like 5e content and everything like that, they like those games and they like that sort of stuff. So you're not going to get people that have interesting creative ideas. Like it's impossible that the YouTubers talking about those games are going to have anything interesting to say, I think, because they are the target audience for this kind of gray goo that's been made by the corporation.
Yeah, but it's like creatively bankrupt. Like I think RPG work much better when they're like indie.
Totally.
Trying to take like D&D into a $1 billion, like it for me, it's almost like well, I'm not like an anti-capitalist. I'm not the most pro-capitalist guy either, but it's antithetic to the idea of like role-playing game, because it's so much imagination based that you're supposed to bring your own contribution. How are you going to turn that into a $1 billion company if you're not like trying to kill that in the bud and just say, you know what, I'm going to just feed you everything you need to do.
I mean, we see what it has to be to make it a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah,
it has
what
to
we
be,
see, and it has to be. It's going to get worse.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse. Right,
and also like role-playing game is gonna appeal to a specific type of people. You have to get a special kind of weirdo to be into that kind of thing. I think you need to be like fairly smart already. You need to be able to like visualize that apple in your mind.
Exactly, and be able to rotate it.
Exactly. So like there's a lot of people like well, okay, that's gonna the stereotype that I'm a misogynistic guy, but like this MIT, they made this test, and apparently like 80% of women there fail at a bottle, like a water bottle.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
And you have to draw the water will sit on it. Like 80% of women cannot do that.
So
and then they ask like, well, how can you have more women in the role-playing game? Well,
so I'm not kidding. When that came out, like it made the rounds the last couple of months. One of my players, who is a woman, sent that out to a bunch of her female friends, and what she got back, drawing the lines, one of them drew a flower coming out of the bottle of water. Like none of them got it, and she was shocked. It was wild. So I don't know. I mean, it does take certain kind of people to be interested in these things, and for the most part, most women aren't interested in these things. I've had some
And
players.
that's okay as well.
Yes.
That's fine. Yeah, it's totally fine. And I've had female players who are incredible role players who actually really love the games in the same way that that we do, but they're not
They're the exception.
normal. Yeah,
Right.
they
No,
are
exactly.
exceptions, and the men who are into
Are
these games
all
in the
exceptions.
are all exceptions as well.
Yes.
There's just more of them,
Mhm.
you know, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You
We
don't
don't
need
have
to
like to
fill
have parity in
quotas.
everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people, it's like people can, you can just like hobbies or not like hobbies. That's fine.
Yeah.
Jacobite wise men say you need to think outside of video game. I think that's a very important like thing. Like, and that's also in the style of GMing. When people like come from role playing game, we talk about people coming from a Critical Role. People coming from video game as well, they tend to have this tendency because in video game, you know, there's a set path. When you into this kind of mentality, you're looking for the right answer. You assume like, oh, there's probably like maybe 2 or 3 scenario I can pick. Which one is going to give me the optimal result? And I think that's a mistake in role-playing game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the idea that there's, because they're also coming at this, and this is something that has, I think, obviously, like the initial design, there's this kind of thing where everything's eating its own tail, because the initial design in D&D is you do have kind of a gameplay loop. You know, you're going through the dungeons. This is how you advance. The incentive to advance is to go into the dungeon. That got taken into video game design, and now the gameplay loop is the standard term that people talk about, and having this this reward cycle and repeating that over and over and over. And I don't think that really is something that should apply necessarily in a role-playing game. Like, you want incentives for gameplay and for characters, but this idea that like it needs to be gamified to that level misses out on the core part of the experience, which is
the best you can do is make a shitty video game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's so much more that you can do with role-playing games than that, and video games do the gameplay loop way better, in my opinion. You know.
Yes.
There was this comment from Guardian of the Rune here that say like, I've heard a lot of Grognar discuss playing D&D, and they don't have any deeper concept than going into dungeon and killing monster, but they hate 4E because video game. This is not immersive roleplay. That's, you know.
Yeah. Again, these are not human thoughts.
Yeah. Nick actually picked up the couple of the 4E core books recently.
I did,
because we wanted to. We're going to check them out and like actually give it a fair shake.
Yeah, they were.
I have them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I've never read them, but like I have to know. Like ever since I got into the hobby, like 4E is shit. 4E is shit. Well, it probably is because it was made by a corporation, but not perhaps not for the reasons they say, or maybe I don't know. But
yeah, I remember
now I have to know.
I played one session at a game shop like the day it came out. It was like they released the scenario to the game shops to run the first adventure or whatever, and I did not like it, but I did, I never read the book or anything like that, so I just kind of wrote it off, and I really don't like the art. I really don't like the art in 4E.
Yeah,
that turned me off immediately. I saw the book, I was like, no.
I don't like it either.
I bet there's going to be something I can find that's interesting, because that many people saying one thing,
I know, saying that it's bad. Yeah, if every idiot on the internet is saying it's bad, I'm like, there's got to be something.
That's interesting, because like it also like bring me to kind of a continuation of this topic we were on, like because and I can tell you 4E, like what I think is like they went way more on the gamist side. Like it's more it's almost like more like a board game with role play element than to some extent, yeah, I guess you could role play in it if you really want to, but like why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
But and that people often say that, like, it came for this because they tried to follow the theory of the Forge, when there was like those forum there with the GNS and the threefold theory, and that's something I wanted to ask you. What do you think we don't have like a good we don't have a good theory of role playing game? We don't have like term to discuss. Even if you look at the board game industry, like nowadays, like a modern board game are much different than what we had like when we were playing like Sorry and Monopoly. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of board games coming out now. Some of them are very, very good. it's a very like a vibrant industry in some form, and they have like, you can tell somebody like, oh, this game is a push your luck collaborative game with, with polyomino. They have those
Yeah.
terms, they have those to talk about mechanics. Talk in role-playing game, we don't even really have that. We don't have, there's no theorizing going around, or very, very few. The only thing that came close to it at some point was this GNS theory and
Yeah.
threefold theory, which
Yeah.
I think GNS theory adds some validity. I think some validity to it. Most people misunderstand it.
It's a very low resolution. It's a very broad
I know that
framework, but it is a framework.
I do know that I think that the BroSR people are sort of working on this. Like they have their own kind of internal terminology that they don't really use with outsiders, just because they don't want to confuse people. But
because it's a cult.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I don't think that's.
kidding,
I
not
honestly, I
kidding.
don't think they're a cult. I think that they're not a monolith. There's actually a lot of really cool people in there.
Right.
No, I tend to like them as people.
Yeah, most of them are all right. but but yeah, I don't know. We don't really have that terminology, and this is something
I think it's because of what I had said before. Like the nature of the activity is in it exists in isolation and cannot transmit ideas. The medium of tabletop gaming prohibits the sharing of information and collaboration and critique up until the internet. And even with the internet, I can't, unless we get to a place where we're all sharing our games over online, there's more of that. But even if I talk to you about this game I'm running or this game I'm playing in, you weren't there and you can't observe
Yeah.
it. And the nature of that prohibits.
And the skill level of GMs and players varies so wildly that the experience is very, very different table to table. Even if you could come up with this kind of like commonality between it, it's not going to be the same. If we're playing, Sorry or something, or Monopoly, like we all know what that experience is. We have these defined rules. We know what the mechanics of the game is, and we can all get relatively the same thing. But role-playing games take so much more, because it's not just the mechanics. I mean, it's things of like your ability to describe a scene, like the scenery of what's around characters, or even just describe what a monster looks like. That varies wildly from player to player.
Because we have gotten innovation. Basically, all of the innovation that has happened in RPGs, or at least the vast majority of it, has been mechanics. Because mechanics can be read, the mechanics can be shared, the mechanics can be seen or experienced and either make sense or not make sense. Nobody is talking about. I mean, I disagree with them, but the story game. The creation of story games as a thing is one of the few innovations to come out of the hobby that actually focuses on role play and perspective and how do we actually do the creative activity. I don't like it, but it is something different than what D&D was. But we got a lot of different permutations of mechanics.
Yeah.
Well, even in mechanics, I found like there's still like so much left unexplored. Like oftentimes, like you have like a very general mechanic. Like if you tell me like, oh, you roll some dice and add some modifier to it, it doesn't matter if it's D20 or D100 or if it's or do I need to roll under or roll over? If it's mathematically the same kind of mechanic, the same kind of like sometimes like you say, that's the dice pool. That's gonna be like a different mechanic, give you a different feel and vibe. But there's still so much left unexplored, and we have like so little language to talk about it.
Yeah.
You want to tell me about this game? I ask you like, oh, what the system is like. You can tell me if it's crunchy. You can tell me if it's a story game. But like what else would you tell me? If you don't want to go into detail and saying, oh, you make a check in this way. Like we don't have like this. We don't have like this language to talk about our hobby really that's been defined.
Right.
Yeah, and you would think, like it's a bunch of fucking nerds. You think they would
Yeah,
come up
and
with
it's
a,
been around for 50 years. You would think some of this would have been worked out.
Yeah, I know.
And talking about like being like a bunch of nerds, like do you think like this is why also that you see a lot of like the normie role playing people are very wishy-washy and are afraid to propose, like they want to cast, not only, I don't think they only want to cast a wide net for the views. I think they also they don't want to make anybody upset. Do you think like it's like this kind of like spinelessness that we often associate with them? Or am I being just mean now?
No, I mean, by all
No.
means be mean, but
Yeah,
no,
a lot of these people deserve it.
Yeah, it's that like I mean, people are utterly spineless, and that's one of the things like that. It will certainly, because I mean, we're gonna try and sell our own games at some point, and
Yep.
we piss people off. We know that, so that's going to be something that is literally going to harm us at some point
Right.
in terms of our sales. But at the same time, it's like I'm not willing to just go along with things that I think are bad ideas. And I think that I don't know, it's like I want to make games that I want to play, the kinds of things that I like that are they're not made very often. And at the same time, like I think that way too often, I think you should always be nice to people until they give you a compelling reason not to be, basically. Like I don't just think that I don't like meanness for the sake of meanness. But I do think that too often the good is sacrificed at the altar of the nice, and I will not do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so I want you just said something that I wanted to say something about. I lost it. Sorry. Nick, do you have something to add to that?
Well, I mean, with regards to why are we not seeing or why are, well, I forget what you said. Why is it, are we not do we not have this language because of a spinelessness aspect to it? I think the only place that language is going to come from, because we've had 50 years of TSR and Wizards of the Coast. We had 10, 12 years of Paizo, and you have your sort of tier 2 and even tier 3 level game publishing companies or game creators. They've done almost nothing with all of that time.
Yeah.
And we're living in a point right now where any company or organization that is big enough to have like salaried employees and an HR department
is corrupted.
Is corrupted completely, and no new information, only corruption and degradation can come from those places. And so the only place, just like who's going to make the better advice content, it's only going to come from individuals or very small groups of people like Matt and I, like you, like other people who have strong opinions about this,
right?
To talk about it and figure out the language. That's the only place it can come.
There are going to be people that are not going to be promoted by the machine. There are going to be people like people that are rough on the edge. People that don't.
I would not get a job at Wizards. They would not hire me even if I sought employment.
Right. Yeah, but the thing about having strong opinions and being a little rough around the edges is that you can cut through the noise. And I think that's necessary, because that's the only way that you're going. Like it's like kind of what you said at the beginning, and this is something like I know you've had Crispy on your channel before, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I still haven't watched it yet, but
it was a great talk. You should watch it.
Yeah, he's awesome. And there's a lot of people out there like him that are kind of looking for something more in their game. They're just not sure what it is yet. And you can watch every YouTube video on RPGs and you'll never hear the correct thing. And so if you can kind of be a little offensive maybe and really kind of and get people angry, you'll at least cut through that signal at some point, and you will find those people. And I'm also like, with the thing of like Critical Role bringing in all these normies and stuff like that, it's like, of course I want as many people to kind of play the things that we like and to hopefully play our games in the future as possible. But I also, it's like, I want people who are going to get the most enjoyment out of it to get it. And I don't think that the kind of people that would be put off entirely by someone being kind of a jerk on YouTube, they're probably not those people anyway, you know?
Right. Right.
And there's something about like there's a lot of people that they evaluate their belief not based on truth, but based on consensus in a way.
Right.
And I think that you get a lot of that, and
Yes.
that's why if you look for answer and you're gonna have like people that don't care about consensus, which are gonna be a bit rougher on the edge oftentimes. You know, like people
Right.
that don't, you know, I don't mind, I don't care what people think. You know, I'm gonna tell you what I think, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you what I believe is true. You know what I mean? I don't. If you don't like it, you know, well, it's just too bad. I
Yeah.
think that's true, and I'm gonna say that. You know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean it having we've talked about this before, and you mentioned it even earlier, Matt, on in this conversation. You know, the fact that a lot of people are sort of timid because they don't want to lean into it. There's a fear of, and there's a hatred of sincerity in the world right now, and being
everything
sincere,
has to be ironic, you know. It's like
everything has to be either ironic or conciliatory. This
Right.
sort of
You don't want to show that you
spineless.
care about something.
Yeah.
Right. Or, you know, hey, I have an opinion, but you know, it's okay. I might be wrong. You know, but you know, it's okay that other people do. Like, no, it's you shouldn't even be saying that. And a lot of these fucking people, whatever they're doing is trash, and it's not okay.
And you don't have to say it's okay. You don't have to repeat their lies.
Yes.
Is the thing. Like,
right. Exactly.
It's also like something like Max Liao, and I agree with that. What do we say? You always say, like, you know, like, yeah, I don't have to say in my opinion every time. Yeah, yes, it is my opinion. Like, I'm just here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you about the game. Yeah, like I don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you like it's true, but you have to be intelligent enough to understand that it's in my opinion. You know.
Yes. Stop ceding the mental ground to
exactly
the stupid, the weak, and the evil.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with what I have to say, if you don't like what I have to say, you know what? There's like, YouTube is a big place. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I know. Like,
right.
But and we talk about mechanics, and you said like a lot of evolution about mechanics, stuff like that. And I wanted to come back a bit on that. That's what I wanted to talk about that I forgot, because like, yeah, some people try something different with the system, and I say like I think there is still a lot that hasn't been, but also people still play D&D, and people go back to older edition D&D, and the OSR is a big movement. It's either like the big corporate thing, Pathfinder, or the OSR in some form. You know, why do you think that? Why do you think people are not like, a lot of people are not like? And it's somebody at some point in the comment like is saying, you know, you have to understand, my hobby is not RPG. My hobby is D&D. You know, what do you think people are so like I wouldn't say afraid, but like reticent to go and try something else? And why do you think those other systems, and I know a lot of it is trash, and a lot of the systems are made by people that are trash, you know, like those Fate and shit like that, so you shouldn't expect something great from them. But maybe it's because like conservative people are conservative and they want to stick with what they know.
I don't think it's that. I think most people just, I mean, it's like, you know, in the political sphere, you know, we have to return. You know, most people just want to return to before everything became bogged down and complicated and terrible, or they just want the nostalgia of.
Well, that's kind of the same feeling. I think like we have an epidemic of nostalgia nowadays because like the world is so shit, and you just like you just think back like, and you think back at a time like you desire a time like North for Key say there, before the dark times, you know. We want that, but we cannot return. We have no power and stuff like that. So we also like often like most people like cannot identify it properly. And
Yeah.
they're unsatisfied with the state of the world. They cannot identify why. They
Right.
just think, oh, it was better before, so they
Right. I have the memory in my mind, so
Yeah.
it's easier to try to go back than it
Yeah.
is to
So,
try and
what if
create and
I
go forward.
what if I go with the aesthetic of the 80s, the music of the 80s, the game I was
Right.
playing in the 80s? Yeah, that won't bring you back to the 80s. You're just gonna play like games that it's all like the superficial stuff.
Right.
Right.
And that's definitely like I love cyberpunk, but that there is also I think like a corrupting creative influence to like XYZ punk, where it's
Mhm.
style over substance, like Morkborg or something, right? Like Morkborg is a beautiful book. I don't think it does anything particularly interesting, but it's all about the vibe, right? I'm not, I don't know how I fully feel about it, because I don't want to really shit on it, but there's a defined time. You can only mine like aesthetic for so
Mhm.
long
Yeah.
before it becomes also like insular and sort of it just trash. It becomes tropified too
Yeah.
much that it just becomes gray.
Yeah, I will say in terms of like going back into people going back to OSR systems, I do think that they're better in a lot of cases than the more modern D&D type systems, because those systems they're not even necessarily very complicated, but there's just so many abilities and powers and stuff like that that tends
Yeah.
to bog things down.
Yeah.
And they like the fact that it's a faster game to play. I do think that there is obviously there's a lot of people who want a deadlier game, and you can obviously, it's like, I know you've even talked about, Max, how
Yeah.
to make 5e deadlier is not that hard, but
Mhm.
there's just something I think that's been missed in the transition from the kind of old school game where things can be very dangerous and very deadly to the modern game where all of these systems basically assume that you're a medieval superhero.
Yeah.
And people and there's not really a mainstream alternative to that at like right now. And so going back to these old games, there's been a lot of there are some advantages to the OSR. I mean, there's a million different settings, a million different games, and they're all roughly compatible, so you can mix and match pieces of them, and that is kind of appealing. And if you can, I think there is a sense in which people just don't want to learn a new set of rules, and if they have all of these products at their fingertips that basically work together, it's much easier to stay in that ecosystem. It's kind of like being in like the Apple ecosystem, like I bought my Mac, already. So like, of course I'll get the iPhone to go with it. Like I can, and why would I
Right.
try an Android or, some other thing like that? So I don't know. I think that's also kind of part of it. There are some actual advantages to the OSR stuff. That's not easily replicable because you don't have the same ecosystem attached to it.
I think there's
people are
also
conservative and reticent to change.
yeah.
Resistant to change, excuse me.
Resistant to change
Yeah.
and reticent to change.
Yeah.
But I there's also this is more pronounced in sort of some crowds than in others. I believe there's Matt, you're completely right. I think there are also a lot of people with some strong voices who incorrectly believe that because it was first, it was the best.
Yeah.
We've already had the divine wisdom of Gary Gygax,
and everything has been like a warping.
Everything has been like a corruption of the pure experience that was made whole in 1970, whatever it was. And I don't know. I mean, it's a weird, I guess, negative aspect of the OSR community. But like you said, Matt, to their credit, like most of all the new and interesting stuff, somewhat counterintuitively, is coming out or has come out of the OSR space, even though they're trying to be like how it was, more
Mhm.
or less.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
know.
Alexander McCrease. I'm like the
Yep.
more I listen to him talk, I think he's trying to do maybe
Yeah,
something different than this
I have his
metaplot.
book Arbiter of Worlds, and I started reading it a while ago, and then there's just a pile of books on my nightstand and that get rotated. I need to finish that book. And his videos and his channel are really good. He has really put a lot of thought into everything over
Yeah,
time.
you see that's one guy I feel like at least like he's coming up with ideas, he's coming up with theory, he's putting some thought in the RV, and I think like that's so lacking that I appreciate it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm very much looking forward to Acts 2, and I like it sounds. He even made it like gold for XP sound interesting to me, which I don't like generally. Because the idea of like your advancement at the higher kind of domain play levels actually being tied to the economics of your nation state, and that's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, and he's making like a domain play sound interesting
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
which that's but like for the longest time, like I disregarded all acts because like I had a lot of like OSR and stuff like that. So you know what? Oh, that's just another OSR.
Yeah, it's another. I know
Yeah,
it's
but it
another
does domain
D20.
play as well, and I say, well, I don't care about domain play, But now, like the more I look into it, the more it's like, oh, okay, he actually did try to solve some of the issue, like the quadratic wizard and linear
Yeah,
fighter,
yeah.
and like people talk like that. He did, but like, and that brings back to the idea that we have so little language and so little like people that talk about the in an intelligent manner that even when somebody tried to do something cool, try to advance
Yeah.
the game in some way,
Mhm.
it's hard to hear about it because people are just gonna say, well, it's a very nice book. I like the setting, and I like
Right.
Right.
Okay, so here is actually another reason why all of the content is so vapid is because on YouTube is because the skills and kind of personality type of someone like Alexander McCrease very different than your kind of YouTube influencer. The
Mhm.
YouTube influencer is very good and highly skilled at making this polished video that's going to grab normie attention and keep them on the hook for a certain number of minutes for the video, and it will they know how to use lighting and camera and all this stuff. They don't know a fucking thing about games though.
Mhm.
On the other hand, Alexander McCrease knows a lot about games and has really thought about all this design, but his YouTube videos are not made in that slick kind of manner, and getting that kind and grabbing normie attention in the same way. It's appealing to people like us who are very interested in that sort of thing. And this is the same thing with our videos as well right now, is that they don't have that kind of slick polish that you need to grab people's attention.
Yeah.
And that is something that we're actually going to be focusing on, is kind of upping the production value of our stuff and
Yes.
compressing these ideas into that format to try to get people to get more attention. And that way I think we'll find a much bigger audience of people who are more interested in this stuff, and we'll be like, wow, this is much more interesting than 10 dungeon master tips on how to wipe your ass.
But that's the thing too, like because I remember like you made at some point like this video that was highly polished about lions and dragons, and this takes a lot of time.
So much work.
So much work.
It's so
And
much
at some
work.
point, like if you want to play games and you have a job and you want to think about what you're gonna say and stuff like that, it just become like, well, at some point, like time is limited as well, like
Right. That's the entire thing is time and energy, because like
Mm.
I have a pretty high pressure job, and by the end of the day, I'm tired. Then I got to walk my dog, make dinner, and it's like 9 p.m. I don't want to get back on the computer.
Yeah, right.
And work. Like, it's
And
tough.
editing is fucking boring.
Yeah.
If you ask me,
Yeah.
like, I can stand that.
Yeah.
So it's the same for me. Like, I don't even like get hours to do like fucking thumbnail and shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
but I think I attract people that are interested by the content. Like try people to, that's also like the black background and stuff like that. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, you're here to listen to what I have to say. You're not here like to listen to like bisexual lighting in a bookshelf behind
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
full of Funko Pop.
I think us being a 2-man operation, this is actually going to be a huge boon for us. Not that we thought about it explicitly for this reason, but I'm going to be moving in a couple of weeks near where Matt is. We're really planning on putting the pedal to the metal in 2024 with Black Ledge Games content.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a little bit better. Matt is going to help me on navigating video editing software, and we can both hopefully take each other's. We can keep the wheel turning.
Right.
It's not on just one person.
Yeah.
It helps still like having a conversation. I think it makes a good show usually.
Yeah.
And that'll be a lot of fun because we'll be able to do the podcast in person now, and that'll be good
yeah,
too.
It'll, I think, be more organic and easier, and
Yeah.
easier from a technical standpoint and
Yeah.
from a content standpoint.
Yeah.
No more worrying about aligning different webcam feeds and all that
stuff. Just point one camera at us and we'll be good.
Yeah. Before the stream started, Justin said, "I are female host, so I meant the only way to get outside of the echo chamber is with boobs." And
that is true. Well, we've considered also using the super chat money that we get now to get one or both of us a boob job, so that way we can be the hot chick, and then it'll be over for these YouTubers.
Yeah, we're planning to prepare to go to the dark side for for a couple $100 a YouTube.
Yeah. No, but that's now like an hour 45 minutes in. That's the topic I wanted to talk about specifically. Like how to break out of the echo chamber and reaching out, because like now we discussed it, because I think it was like I wanted to establish, like, because I say we all have a vision which we share in most part of like a role-playing game, how like role-playing should be. We give advice, we try to promote, and we try to I try to help people, like say, what, and that's always the thing, like if you're not getting as much from the hobby as you think you be, try those things that might help you. Like try to get, like, be sincere, try immerse yourself. Like I don't just go and be told a story. Don't be passive. So, but the thing is, in my audience, like I would say like 90%, 95% of people are converted already. They're people that already think like that. And I said, like, I'll try to be useful. And once in a while, I got a video that come out, but it's always like a video. Like I made a video about like X versus square. This one goes around, but I'm just like, it's very matty video where I discuss, like, if you use a grid, like which one. It's not very like what I try to promote.
Mm-hmm.
But and it was like an earlier video too. So when I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with the channel, but so how can we? I would love to be able to talk to Ginny and to our audience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She would never fucking talk to me because I use the wrong word, because I'm rough on the edge, and but and when she talk about like, oh, the GM burnout and stuff like that, and we talked about that earlier too, like when you prep and you try to think of every option and say, well, like, let go, that's something I would like to tell her, let go a little more on the fly. But that's the thing. Like I would like to be able to break out of the echo chamber, not because I'm craving the views, because I don't want to corrupt what I'm trying to promote. I don't want to go with the platitude. I don't want to repeat what people like. People like to be told what they believe already. I mean, they like to be reinforced in their belief.
Yeah, totally.
Right, so, and you want to have good and interesting conversations, and try and learn yourself and figure out how to always do it better. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge, and we've sort of fallen into the OSR adjacent space, I think, by a lot of what we were saying and our temperament, I think, was attractive to the OSR crowd. because there's very much like a chip on the shoulder, kind of rough around the edges vibe in that community online, and so it was sort of it makes sense that that's sort of how it happened. But we've said from the beginning we're not OSR people, but there was some interesting things that we gleaned from it. But now that's we've been at it for
6
several
months, maybe.
Several months at this point. How do you go and get a wider audience? And I think, I mean, some of it unfortunately is, I mean, I'm not going to say unfortunately, I mean, it's work, like you said, Max. I think the meta, I hate that word, but the meta of guy in front of camera doesn't go as far as it did in 2010, 2012. And hopefully I would like to see a couple content creators in our space maybe try and experiment with different methods of content, and that might
formats.
be different formats, and find something that works, because this is a super niche section of YouTube, and we're trying to express ideas which are an even smaller subset of a small subset of people.
We're also one thing that we're kind of thinking of is taking on topics that are related to what we're talking about, but aren't necessarily like, okay, we're going to talk about immersion and role-playing games. It's more like we're doing a video on the use of AI art coming up, and I think that one's going to have a lot more broad appeal, because it's going to be,
it's topical.
It's framed in terms of what's going on in the RPG stuff, because there's all these weirdos who are like, we won't buy your book or whatever if you use AI art, but it's got appeal to other things. So if you can bring people in who are interested in that, if they find your videos interesting, then maybe your other stuff will start getting recommended to them. And so hopefully, like, pulling them in with something that is more broad and more general, but still kind of related to the core ideas, is a good way to do it. But the danger there is that you end up watering things down too much, getting too far away from the kind of core content you want to make. And then unfortunately there is also like culture war stuff, which I don't want to get stuck into that trap, but there are times where it seems like it can't really be avoided. And so that stuff will come up, and I'm sure, like, we did an episode on like toxic masculinity way back when, and that one did fairly well. I think it's got like over 1,000 views or whatever, which for our channel is pretty good. But we don't want it to be like, well, can you guess what the social justice warriors did this week?
Right. We're not
was it the same thing they did last week? Like, who cares?
Exactly. I'm the same. Like, I did some video about the culture war and stuff like that when it was like topical and stuff like that, but I'm so fucking over it.
I know, me too.
Can you guess what they did now? Yes, I can.
I can guess exactly what they did.
Probably because I already saw it on Twitter already. And, and also, we all know, anytime the culture war is sort of engaged with, I definitely for us, and I would say for anyone who's commentating who doesn't already have an established audience, sort of just churning out current events shows, actually have something to say. Don't just show the spectacle, because
and it should be related to something that like actually affects the game, because this whole thing of like, oh, they turned Aragorn black. It's like, okay, yeah, it's cringe, whatever. Like, I don't care about that. Things like safety tools, though, that does bother me, because this is like becoming requirements for GMs who want to run a game at a convention. Now you have to use these in a lot of cases. And that, to me, I'm like, no, you are actually fucking with people's ability to engage in the hobby, and then pretending like it's, like, oh, it's
We are the
totally
gatekeeper.
optional, Yeah, it's like that sort of stuff really does bother me, and I
Yeah.
think that
And
is
also
something worth addressing.
the mask is off with how like actually evil. This isn't just look what the left is done. Oh,
Mhm.
they're so crazy. I'm so frustrated with them.
Right. It's like this
It's
is
so much
something that
worse.
might actually impact my life,
Yeah.
and I don't so I do think that there's times where it's worth, maybe touching on it, but yeah, I think it is a complete trap to go down into the culture
Yeah.
war.
It's
Because you just
lame
and that's
content and
and
it's
that's
not going to be
again, your
viable.
audience is just going to be culture war people. It's not going to be people who
Right.
actually care about
Exactly.
games,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't want that.
If I want to do that, I would just like do a channel about that.
Right.
Right.
I would stop pretending to talk about RPG. And if I want to go into culture war, I'm gonna go into culture war full on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. But yeah, like I because I have no intention of like breaking in song and dances, you know what I mean? Like, and of course I'm limited. Like I'm jamming this old man that can barely fucking speak English. So of course I know like I'm always gonna have like a cap on my appeal, in that sense.
Mhm.
And I don't want to do like you see people like they started like a channel like a year ago, and now like they're like at almost 2,000 subscribers and stuff like that. But I don't want to do like point and laugh. I don't want to just do like those
Yes.
little
Yeah.
skits and stuff like that. That's not me. That's not for me. I don't like it. The drama stuff, I'm not into it.
Yeah. Drama content is also very
Yeah.
cringe.
Right.
And I find I find it's regrettable that like this is what appealed to people, like this outrage
know.
porn, the drama content, the point
Right.
and laugh. I feel like, I want to help people. I want to bring something to the hobby, but there's no appetite for it sometimes. Like I feel like, but I say there must be some appetite for it because like those normie people that do those GM advice video get a lot of views, but they get a lot of
Yeah.
views with fucking
Right.
shit advice.
It's shit advice in a somewhat slick package sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not though. I mean, some of these it's like sometimes it's not that great. It's like ugly people, like being successful. That makes me very angry. No, but yeah, I think there is a place for better advice. I think it has to be. The unfortunate thing is it's really high effort. And that is the thing. Like those people that are giving this shitty advice, they're putting a lot of work into their stuff. Like YouTube is not
Yeah.
easy. And so like it pays off for them.
That's it's almost like maybe that's why they put their energy like trying to be like this internet celebrity kind of people.
Yeah.
So they don't have
yeah.
time to the big good GM that actually gonna
Yeah.
give advice. They're just like, well, what you should talk about. You should talk about how to be successful on YouTube.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if we can that's what I say. Like I wish I could talk to Ginity and stuff like that, to our audience.
Mhm.
I don't want to be
I mean-
Ginity. And I don't care about being famous or shit like that.
Right.
I would like if she could like find my video and repeat
Right.
that
And
fucking
it's like if
advice,
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like if you could avoid being famous, but actually, like talk to that audience and say
Yeah.
and reach them and be like, hey, no, this is actually going to help your game. Like
Mhm.
it's actually like noble, as opposed to.
Yeah, like I like what the message that I have to that I want to share to make its way, and if it makes its way to the people in the mouth of somebody else, it doesn't bother me because like I mean it's not about like putting my face out there. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
that type of narcissist. But
I mean, for the YouTube video content, I think it's still an unanswered question that we are going to be trying to navigate ourselves in.
Mhm.
Okay, we want to put out our own opinions, our own advice, which is substantively different and we think much better
Yep.
than the advice out there. But it has to be, I think, for it to go wider than our own audience or this this small corner of ours, it has to not only be put together in a presentation which is interesting enough, but we have to do some work in making the ideas, the opinions, understandable and not
Yeah.
not needlessly convoluted.
Yeah. The other thing we kind of talked about before, Nick, is the fact that like we want to make our own games and stuff like that.
Right.
Like we are hoping that we can get enough attention on the products that we make, that, and if people find those interesting, that will sort of boost the rest of the content as well.
Uh-huh.
Because if you can make something that people actually want to buy, and getting people actually getting their eyes on it is difficult. It's almost the same
It's
kind of
kind of like
problem.
a feedback loop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly. But that's exactly it. Like, I haven't talked to John too much about the Kickstarter, which is obviously it's been great. Exceeded its goal. I think it made like $15,000 for Makuhito. It's awesome. But I'm thinking now he's probably got all those people's emails. The 500 people who
Right.
were on his Kickstarter list. He can use Kickstarter updates on that Kickstarter forever to promote all of his future products now, and like, and hopefully to try to get them back into his YouTube channel. Like, I hope he does that, because that would probably boost his content even more. Though his stuff does pretty well. He gets quite good views. He makes good videos as well. But that's sort of the idea. Is we want to get a feedback loop going between all the kind of various things we're doing, and hopefully that should cut through the noise at some point.
Yeah. And to go back briefly, so to the flip side of the shorter, sleeker, quicker dissemination of content through your standard YouTube video, something that Matt, we've talked about this. We haven't done it yet, but I would like to see more people in the space experiment with this format. Is video essays and live stream, where again, you mentioned it. We think deeply about these things. We are nerds. We have a Substack. We don't have anything on it yet. Using that as a space to really go in depth about these various things that we're thinking about and considering, and sharing those, basically reading it on on a live stream, and then that becomes not only a conversation with the audience that we already have, but you have a longer. It's like a solo podcast. It's like you're reading an article, or you're listening to an article that goes in depth. You can listen to it if you're if you want to, if you're not part of the live stream. But that is a way to bank out more thorough explorations of topics, which the people who are interested in those more headier things, or actually considering more deeply than, again, the 10 ways to wipe your ass in the dungeon, can hopefully find what you're talking about, and draw you in. Or they can be drawn in. Because I've seen that format be successful in other
in other media,
in other corners of YouTube that I follow.
Yeah, you see that video essay on other topics, but like we don't really have them. Like sometimes, like when I go live, I'm gonna try to go live and talk about like a specific topic, trying to people laugh at me sometimes because it's like 10 minutes of content and then like an hour of interacting with the chat. But that's also why I go live. I like interacting with the chat.
Yeah,
right.
Live streaming,
and the chat likes you interacting with them.
Right, exactly. You get the that's how you. I really like, and we obviously have a lot of overlap in our audience. I love interacting with our audience because it's so much fun. And the people that we've attracted so far seem to be very smart.
There's no downside to interacting with the audience.
Exactly, it's awesome that they say really, really funny things, and it's kind of a white pill to know that there's other people out there, that think like we do and laugh at the things that we do.
There's something great about like Snow. You get to see the same people, and then there's some kind of like lore that build up. It's a lot of fun. How about like going because like that's also one thing I'm trying to do. Like that's why I'm having you on. Like I'm trying to, like, you know, I did like a lot of interview with a creator. I'm gonna go back to it probably after my move when I got like a more reliable internet, because that's always a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to do, because I enjoy those kind of talk. I want to talk with people that have like a vision, that have a message. Like that's why I had Crispy. I talked with Justin as well, because like I was talking to Justin Thor, that you might have seen.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to Justin off stream. I say, man, you do have something to say, but you're always there, like doing those troll comments and shit like that. But you actually have some idea. So come my show, we'll talk about it. And then Crispy with his journey, and now you that are always like, because you used to say like, oh, we're on a mission from God to save the hobby. You know, like well, that's interesting. You know, like
the podcast will be coming back also.
After
I move and probably after
and after I go to all these fucking weddings that I have to go to in the next couple months.
And what I was saying, I'm trying to invite people, like, and sometimes like there's people too, like, you know, I'd like to have you on the show, but like, what do you want to talk about? You know, what would be like your message that you would have to say? You know, what is your point you want to make that we can discuss? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm like, if I'm just trying to talk to you and invite you and talk like, oh, so what's your favorite game? You know, like that's kind of like it's not my jam. You know,
I know.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
But that thing, and so you go ahead, Matt.
Oh no, continue your thought. Mine's a slightly separate topic.
Oh, but I was saying, but that's the thing also. Sometimes I try to go on other shows, you know, like when I'm invited. When I'm invited, I try to go. I like being invited. I'm not invited that often, maybe because I'm I don't know, because I'm a bit of an asshole. But I like to go when I'm invited, because that's also I find a way to try to reach a different audience. But sometimes you're invited on the show, and it's like, well, why did you want me there? You know, you're just gonna talk about like something that, like, you know, that you could have talked with anybody. You just wanted a buddy there to talk with.
Just another head to fill space. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So even that, like, I find like it's kind of like unfortunate, like you said. You know, like I know, like, you've been on the Basic Expert shows, and Basic Expert invited you to talk about a topic, you know, talk about your vision and stuff like that. I think that's the right way to do it.
I agree.
That's more interesting content for the host. And that's mutually beneficial for not only the host, but also the person that's being hosted, right? You're talking about something.
Even with the Basic Expert, I think like there's like the overlap between his audience and our audience is like, it's probably like a fairly big overlap.
I would imagine so.
Even though there might not be so much overlap in the style of play.
Yes.
For some reason, like they're the people that you know are gonna go listen to some you know, other people sometime. Like I like to listen to John, even though I know, I think, but I like mostly because I like him and I like Victor and stuff like that. You know, I think they do like a fun show, but.
And the audiences, I mean, they're more intellectual than, you know, the YouTube slop people. So like there's, which I don't think it's a coincidence why we have such an overlap. Like for sure. I was gonna say something else, just in terms of getting a little bit back to like having defined terms and all this. I had a thought that most role-playing game books don't have much on this sort of thing. On like they'll have a very brief section on, you know, what's a role-playing game, you know, how do you GM?
Again, the platitude that
it's in there because they feel required to put it in there. They don't actually have anything to say.
Right.
Our games, we've already talked about this. We're gonna be very specific. And
I'm gonna have the what is role-playing game, like what is role-playing in my section, in my book in Winter Down. But that's gonna be my vision, you know, like I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna do the same thing.
Very explicit about the vision, very explicit about what we mean. Same thing on like what it means to be a game master, how to run a game, how to actually run like a great game. And I remember one of the times that you had Alexander McCrease on your show, you guys were talking, I think it was about Winter Dawn, like you had like kind of
designer
sidebars.
notes.
Designer notes. I think that's a great idea, because there is just so much where, you know, people tweak things and they don't really understand why it was like that in the first place. Sometimes I guess the designer doesn't know why it was like that in the first place
That's
either. Maybe,
oftentimes the case. Yeah.
yeah. But I think that's a great idea, and we will definitely be doing things of that nature in our games, because it's like I don't want, like, if someone picks up one of our games, I want them to know what it is this product is supposed to be. And of course, once it's in your hands, it's your game, you play it however you want, but I at least want people to understand what the vision is without simply relying on their preconceived notions of what a role-playing game is and all of this.
Right.
And that stuff we'll probably have that as like separate things and like blog posts and stuff as well, that you can read elsewhere, but it will definitely be in the game as well, because that's not something that it's something that I think is completely overlooked like every single time, and that's kind of why we're in this mess. It's just that you have an assumption of what a role-playing game is. Everybody, it's all slightly different for everyone, and there's a misalignment. It's like being misaligned at the table with your players, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's anyone who's considering making anything beyond even a small supplement. You know, you don't have to be burdensome in the page count, but I don't know. I may become cringe harping back on this again and again, but leaning into a sincere idea, leaning into sincerity and a vision is that's such a unique thing. That's creativity is gruel. Any creative output is gruel at this point.
I think people are starving for that sort of stuff.
Yes.
It's the same thing like when you see, like, you know, Tom Cruise goes and makes the new Top Gun movie, and it's this massive success. And it was incredibly well-made action and technical movie, but at the same time it was like, it's just a story about like heroic people and doing heroic things and
not
taking risks. It's not exactly. There's no weird cultural message attached to it. And it's like, if you give someone something normal, they are starving for that, you know, and something that takes itself seriously and doesn't have some ulterior motive. And it's like, I think people are afraid to actually put something out that is just sincerely a good thing, you know, like that they hit pouring your kind of heart and soul into it in a sincere way without doing any sort of apologies. That's why we're always no apologies, no compromises, like, because people are desperate for that. And I think that in your content, if you do that in your content as well, like YouTube stuff, that comes through, and that will, I think, attract people.
Yeah.
And hopefully cut through noise.
It's funny, like, that you talk about like sincerity, because like I don't know, it made me think about and we talked about also like being reactive when you GM, like you react to what the player do and the player react to. But you know, now we're back to like Shoner, like call his book like how to role play the hard way. Whatever you think about it, I think like an art is an acronym for honest and reactive, you know. So
is it really?
There's the sincerity there, like, you know, like, be sincere, be honest, like, and honest and reactive dialogue. So there, you know, I think there's something like there's a D from that I forgot that R, there's a D.
Okay.
It's my second language.
Yeah. But I mean, I think a lot of us, you know, intuit, if not fully realize that, you know, that fact, you know, that's everything sucks. We all know that everything sucks.
Yeah.
And, you know, just, you know, leaning into it is leaning into something good and honest is the only and the best.
Leaving the cynicism behind a bit. Your
Yeah.
table, your
Yeah.
friends, like that.
Cynicism is the poison
I
of like
hate
the modern
cynicism.
age. It's infuriating.
It's also it's infuriating to me that people will confuse like deadpan humor with you're just a
Oh, yeah,
cynic. It's just like, oh
Yeah,
God, no.
not the same
Like,
thing.
it's not the same. Yeah.
yeah. Or I don't know, the one that's like people confusing sarcasm with cleverness.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
Right.
annoys me.
God. Yeah.
That fucking annoy me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
How do we convert people to our style of play, or to a style of play that we like? Can we, or is it like when you meet somebody that is into role playing game, maybe somebody like from work, they say, you know what, you say, you know what, some people, I say, you just vet your players, and maybe you're not right for my table,
Yeah.
get banned.
Yeah.
But you say, you know what, try that. Like how can we get like from a normal role player to make them an actual role player?
I don't look at it as conversion. I don't think obviously there are examples of all kinds of things, but I think about it more. I'm not trying to convince people otherwise. I think there's people like Crispy, like myself, when I first started, that want something they may not fully know what they want, or they can't fully articulate what they want, but they know somewhere that they want something more out of the game that they're playing. They've heard about it, they've read about it, they've done it, they've seen it on Critical Role, and they want some kind of an immersive experience. And putting out the language, again, unapologetically and sincerely, and the advice of how that can be how you can do that, why that's a good thing, and examples therein are hopefully going to reach the ears of people who already want this thing but are settling for less, or have already given up, or who have walked away from the hobby, but maybe occasionally they tune in, or they follow some YouTube channels, or some podcasts that are gaming or RPG related or RPG adjacent, and oh really, it could be that makes perfect sense. But that's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I was thinking. That makes so much sense. I have to do this.
I think there's also kind of like the ripples and kind of butterfly effect of this as well, because the more people that you reach, if you get even one or two of them to actually try this and they find they like it, and you get someone like Crispy who's running a table, that his players now like to play in this style. This is like, because they're getting a lot more out of it. That's gonna get communicated to other people. Like there is this kind of like network kind of almost like like butterfly effect sort of thing that comes from it. But I kind of agree with Nick. It's like, I think that there is a large number of people out there that are kind of starving for something that they're not sure what it is. And if we can reach them, then it's not really a matter of conversion. It's a matter of like, oh, the light has gone on in their brain, and now that's what they want. They're going to kind of actively pursue. Hopefully,
so it's more
then,
like when they're ripe for the
yeah, exactly. And hopefully then, if there are more people playing in this way, then maybe people who are not necessarily thinking they're missing something, they might be like, oh, I might want to kind of try that, like maybe they have a point, people who might be like less so inclined to do that. But I think the kind of from our perspective, the most important thing is to just find the people out there that know something's wrong and don't know what it is, and want something more out of their game, because I think there's a whole lot of people out there like that. So it's kind of just a matter of finding them, or them finding us.
And people don't have to do this, but Matt, you and I have talked about getting some, when we're both in Austin, making efforts to find other people and spreading our message in the meat space.
Yeah, like we're gonna do like a meetup group in Austin and see if we can find people that are just physically like in our geographic area and get them together and try and hopefully get kind of people like actually in the kind of club hobby mentality of but playing in this style as opposed to more of what like kind of the OSR guys would like out of clubs.
Or worse, the 5e slop.
Right.
And because like you mentioned also like, oh, there's some contagion that can happen. I think that's true. Unfortunately, I think it's also going to be like on the other side. If you're at your table, you have like one player that is like never going to immerse himself and is always going to make those jokes. He's going to prevent other people from immersing. So maybe vetting is still a part of like the equation.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And if some person isn't jiving for whatever reason, if they're disruptive for whatever reason, they gotta go.
Yeah.
But
we try to prevent that by, feeling them out before we play the game. Like if someone and I think it's fairly easy. Like you're to know it's not, you don't have to go through like background checks or anything like that. But,
right.
But yeah, I think most of the problems that come at a table, not like, oh, my game is lacking this or that, but when there's problems at a table, it's because you're gaming with the wrong people.
You're gaming with the wrong people, and you probably haven't spoken up about it.
Right.
Yeah. Guys, they possibly post some live play of good role play. I guess for like you think that this is efficient? Because I think like most live play is unwatchable, but also most live play is not immersive.
I think live plays are of value. I don't know. I can't quantify that. I don't know how valuable or in what way, but I feel that it must be true.
It is. I mean, our friend Drew, who his Kickstarter is finally getting fulfilled. We're going to get our hands on his new game. Like he got inspired partially by watching one of our live plays from 10 years ago to make a role-playing game. And like start a business. So like there is value in it. I just don't think that it's going to be like that will reach some people, and some people will go, oh, that's what they're talking about. That's cool. Other people are going to see it and be like, this is boring. Just like everything, it's people sitting around a table, unless you're doing the Critical Role entertainment style.
Yeah. I think what we need would be like good role play by people that are entertaining, can talk fluently and stuff like that, fluidly both.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're putting, the goal would be to put out something that is more sincere, but still immersive. In the good version of Critical Role.
Yeah, the best case scenario is you have this giant studio with all, it's like high production value, but you actually sit down and play the game.
Right. I am not against
this fake thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think either Matt or I have any issues with like production value. As the production value is like good. I don't have anything. I don't have anything bad to say.
I don't have anything against that. I also don't have anything. There seems to me as well to be this strain of thought in the kind of indie creator space that if you're marketing, it's bad, And for me, I'm like, that's crazy. Of course you want to market, and you want to market successfully and do it very well.
Right.
You don't want to compromise for the market.
Right. But you do want to. But it's like when Shadow Dark came out. There was a lot of people who were like hating on it because it was so slickly marketed, and to me that's awesome. They should be slickly marketing it.
Yeah, why didn't you do it?
You want to sell your game. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And if you're good at that, then that's great. But I don't know. There seems to be kind of a mentality against that where I don't like that. It's like I want people, like all these guys that are making great games, like I want them to succeed, and I want people to know about them and buy them. And if you have to do some marketing, I mean, you literally have to. If nobody knows about your product, no one will buy it.
Right. I mean, it's the same mind virus as sort of the hipster mentality, or the indie or underground music scene, and it definitely an evolved mind virus from the sort of race to the bottom mentality. I think the hobby has. It isn't real unless it's in a sweaty basement with you and a bunch of fats.
I
And
don't
it's also
like,
oh, don't be a tryhard. You know what I mean? Like just like
Yeah.
well,
Right.
no, you should try hard. If
You should
want to
try
do
hard.
something.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah,
always
exactly.
try hard in what you're doing.
And it's the idea of like the starving artist. I hate that
Yeah.
meme. I hate that meme. You know who like the most successful artists out there are fucking rich.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
so- in a lot of cases they're very good. In some cases they're not.
But,
But-
yeah, because there's also this thing, like, maybe like sometimes a popular thing are not the best, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, because like most people are fucking moron and they want like fucking slut,
Right.
But like something, if you make something bland, more people can eat it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, I think you still, and it almost come back to this sincerity that you mentioned a lot. Like, yeah, if you're trying to make something,
Right.
try for real. You know what I mean? Like, be
Yeah,
sincere
yeah.
and be true about it. Don't
Yeah.
Exactly.
don't say, oh, I'm just making this thing, but just like
Yeah, I don't really actually care about it. If you don't actually fucking care about it, why should I?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about with you, if you don't mind. Like, we're almost like two and a half hours now, but I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, likewise.
And we talked about it a bit earlier in the stream, and I wanted to come back to it about getting active player, like like Guardian of the Rune was saying, like zombie player, how like to avoid that. Is that like just like a big, and we talk about converting player and getting the right player, vetting the group. Is that all it is, or can you like actually say to people like, you know what? No, tell me what your character do. Tell me what your character say. Just don't sit there and wait for me to feed you the answer. Don't look. It's not a multiple choice question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think usually in the case that I have a player who's not speaking up very much, like I will have something that is going to be relevant to them. Something is going to happen to them that kind of I try and get them moving in that way. In which case it's not just like, oh, the party, this is happening. It's like someone grabs you, and take, what do you do? And kind of try and shake them out of it. But I don't know. I'm not even sure. Like, you want active players, but I think people are going to have varying degrees of how active and engaged they are in the game, and it's okay for people to have different levels of that. As long as they're not if they're doing nothing, I don't know what to do about that. Yeah.
But I mean, it is a difficult thing because what is it? I mean, I guess it used to be the case that you had actual nerds coming into the hobby. Now you have everyone sort of has all of the dysgenics of nerddom.
Yeah.
By being terminally online. And utterly desocialized in ways that an early '80s nerd couldn't even compare with in most cases. So, I mean, Matt is right. Everybody is going to have different temperaments, different levels of sort of energy and engagement. That is fine. If someone is sort of new, if you're playing hopefully with a somewhat normal person, and it's just they've never gamed before, and or they don't know you or the group as people. If they're strangers coming in to a new group, that's one thing. I would say, I honestly, I just say, like, use your common sense. If you're a decent person, you just don't treat them any differently. Just run the game.
Yeah.
Come back to them. Continue to give opportunities, and and encourage them to hey, like, what are you doing? Here's a scene, here's a scene with you. It's if they're normal and socialized, hopefully they will,
That's a big if.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
if, because everyone everybody's completely nuts and out of their mind, right? In the current day, if it is a case that this person like isn't doing anything, or they're really spurred out, even if they're a good person, I mean, you ultimately have to make that call for your group.
Mm-hmm.
Give them several opportunities, give them a couple of sessions to sort of socialize, basically. And if they can't or won't, if it's 0, or again, they're really out there and disruptive by their very being, they got to go. I mean,
yeah, disruptive to me, disruptive player would have to go. Someone who's less engaged, who might just be more introverted, I would give them a lot more leeway, to stick around. And basically it would come down to, like, are you actually enjoying this? Are you having fun? And, like, is there something, like, do you want to be more engaged?
Yeah, I mean, like, you
I'd be like,
have to
I
set
want
the
you to
bar.
be more engaged. Yeah.
You have to set the bar. Like, 0 is not acceptable. 0 engagement is not acceptable.
When we had Ander on the show the other day, he was actually talking about, because he's such a big personality and goes so crazy with his, getting in character and everything like that. That kind of it makes it okay for everyone else, people who might be less comfortable with engaging that much. It kind of encourages them to come out of their shell a little bit. So if you set the tone, if you have a high amount of enthusiasm to play, and as a GM,
which hopefully you do.
Yeah, which hopefully you do. I mean, why else would you be playing games if you didn't?
You already have problems if that's not the case.
Yeah. But but I think you can kind of set the tone. And again, it's like, throw that character into conflict. So so they have to do something, and then generally I think that if they do something, they're going to get what we get out of this. They're going to like that and probably want to do it more. Yeah, it's a tough question. I don't know. I'm not sure that there's like I
don't think there's a silver bullet answer. Again, if we're talking just about engagement, I think, Matt, you said it better than I did, and that's correct. If they are engaging, but it becomes clear that they're in it for a very different reason. I mean, we've gone back to sort of the beginning of the conversation, where, okay, if you're just here to roll dice and chew chips, and you are engaged, but you are not immersed, and you are disrupting everyone else.
I think immersion is the big word there. I think immersion is like the way to get your player engaged. If you can get them immersed, if you can encourage them to be immersed,
right.
And I think there's because that's also like come back to almost like the bad advice. I think I see a lot of people like giving like in the chat advice, like they're actually giving advice that will break the immersion of the player, when they say like like I say sometimes, like, don't cock block your player. I mean, like, if your player got an idea, want to interact with the world in some way, I hate when a GM say, like I said, oh, I tied the lady to the radiator, and I said, well, actually, like, it's electric heating. Like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Actually,
shut up. Yeah.
The player had an idea. The player was trying to be active. Now you just fucking kill his idea.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be much harder for him to be active. Now he's going to go like poke the question and stuff like that. And Guardian of the Rule had some good comment about that earlier, saying like to be in control of your character destiny, instead of the GM telling you okay, you kill that guy. No, like, don't tell like the player how they feel. Tell them what happened and stuff like that. And he say 5e player actually discourage playing unoptimized, so they're story gamer.
I hate that.
Yeah,
I hate that.
There's that as well.
Are you really want to go with that? You should actually take power attack, and you should actually
Yeah.
I can't. I
Yeah.
that's very triggered right now. Very triggered. Will use X card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like well, avoiding the railroad, going with no prep, and letting the character, the player with their character lead the game, lead where the story is, and as a GM just being reactive to it helps. And that's something that we talk about the Bro SR a bit. And because I'm a big like a advocate of like, well, no prep GMing or like very little prep GMing, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're gonna prep when you start a campaign. You want to know like something about the world, but then after like you just go in the session and you go with the flow. You fly by the seat of your pen. You react to what the player do.
Yep.
And that's something that the Bro SR, Jeff Rowe, and they had this big campaign about like no prep GMing, you know. But I think it's interesting because I think we do it very differently.
Yeah.
Like the way I do no prep
Yes.
and the way they do no prep, they're gonna do like oftentimes the no prep, like rolling on chart. That's what they mean for that. And I also
Yeah.
don't think, because that's also I think training the player to be, and that's what I want to talk about it a bit with you, because like uncouth boy, I don't know if he's still here. I said like I'm gonna reply his question, like he asked this question almost 2 hours ago. I'm sorry if I didn't get to it sooner. I pinned it, like hopefully he's still.
He should have
Yeah.
had faith in you.
Yeah.
I told him in chat I'm starring your comment. I'm gonna come back to it later. But I didn't realize it would be like that much later.
Yeah.
Time flies. But it's like James rolling on dungeon generation table live. Any comment? That was a big thing on Twitter last week. And yeah, I saw that. And personally, I think that's kind of like well, for a dungeon, it doesn't bother me that much because sometimes I did like create like a dungeon. Like when I would play like some tile, I did create like a dungeon live. I'm mostly theater of the mind, and sometimes just like, yeah, there's a room there, whatever. It just like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, you got deeper into this topic than I did. I think I think my opinion is 90% the same as it was when I started with regards to dungeon, rolling random encounter tables or random.
Yeah, I mean, like I would say mine's probably 90% same as what it was previously. Like I just hadn't used random tables for much.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like we're doing the fly by the seat of your pants thing. And so it's, you're making stuff up. It's all being done on the fly. None of it's pre-prepared. I think that like random encounters and things like that, they can be extremely interesting and extremely useful and add this kind of spice, but there's definitely not the only tool in your toolkit. And I feel like a lot of these guys, really that's like all they do. And like the thing that they're talking about, like with random dungeon generation, like I know there's like in the DMG, one of the appendices, has this like fairly easy procedure for generating like what's the next piece of room and terrain, and it all kind of works out and is very cool. But I still I feel like doing that live is going to consume a bunch of time and is going to consume like a lot of the energy of the game and take you out of it. Like for me, like I had one random encounter that ended up providing about 3 sessions worth of gameplay accidentally, and I rolled that random encounter when my players were like, hey, we want to go to the market and like buy a bunch of stuff. So they started looking through the books and like seeing like, what's the price of this? What's the price of that? And so I used that time to roll up the random encounter and think about what it's going to be. And so then 25 minutes later, we get to the point of like when that happens and I had it and it just seemed like, oh, that was part of the game. It was already there, but I would not, if the players had were attentive to me at the moment, I would not want to be rolling on a chart. That would kill it for me. So I don't know. I don't like the idea of like zero prep. Like I'm very little prep. But I spend like maybe an hour thinking about the game beforehand. Obviously it's like I do a lot of more thinking before a campaign.
Like you think about the game also, like when you like you do the dishes, you
exactly,
whatever, you always have time like you can think about stuff when we're not like Twitter and
Right. For me, my session to session prep, it usually is not anything more than just me thinking about it. Like that's my
Mhm.
prep. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it for more than for about an hour or whatever. I'm occasionally thinking about it during the week when I'm thinking about it. And
Yeah.
with regards to random tables, I think I'm not quite as opposed to them as I was previously. I think when you need them, it's nice. It can be nice that they're there, sort of very sparingly, or again, only when you need them. But most of the time, again, just like this world, I I imagined it. I came, even if I rolled or used the random name generator, like I came up with this NPC.
Yeah.
I have an imagination. I can imagine
My dog
what
sneezed really loud. Sorry.
okay, what you likely would and would not encounter in a
Yeah.
cave or something. And so, but having a table can be okay, here that's sort of been done for me. These are generally things that most commonly are going to be there, and
Yeah, and like
fine.
I find like monster tables very boring. I don't care about that. It's like
Yeah,
I like things that are like world event tables, things
Mhm.
that could
right.
be happening or that you
Mishaps
could, yeah,
or
weird, like, people you can run into and things like that.
yeah.
Like I find that very useful and very interesting. And but the thing is, it's like it's useful for me in context of a fantasy game where we're going to be doing overland travel because previously I used to just hand wave travel essentially, because it was nothing happens, but now
Mhm.
it's like maybe something does happen on the road. And like
Hmm.
now that I've done that successfully, I can't imagine really going back. Like I do think that there's value for it there. But like a lot of the games I like to play are modern games, and like I'm not going to have random gang member tables and random, like city event tables because these are things I am so familiar with already, that I can come up with that on my own, and I feel like I can do it in a way that's more plausible. And the other part of this is that a lot of people will say like this adds an element of the unexpected even to the GM, and they're right about that. But they they don't understand that what we're doing is also an element of the unexpected to the GM.
Right.
And when you're making something up on the spot,
Yeah.
like it's surprising to you because you just made it up.
And
Like,
also the unexpectedness that a random encounter table, it's I really I dislike the tone that people say that in, because they put it it, I the tone, the unexpectedness that a random table is going to give you is some sort of like revelatory experience, some sort of
Mhm.
divine
Mhm.
inspiration.
It's
Like
the Oracle.
it's like
Yeah,
the Oracle. No, it's just 12 fucking things you wrote down. Like it could be any number of these 12 things. I could imagine something that is a 13th thing.
yeah.
You know, I
It's it.
Yeah.
it's a tool. It's a
There was an
tool.
episode of Futurama where they meet Gary Gygax,
Yeah.
and he said, they meet him. He takes his die and he goes, "It's a pleasure to meet you." It's like he had to consult the role. It's like I don't want to run the game like that.
Yeah. And not only that, but that's I was talking about that in the sense of having active player, because that's also something like that. When I'm a player in that kind of game, it kind of like take me out a bit, because
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like now, like, oh, it's what's gonna happen, just gonna random, like, and I say, like, we're at the table, we're trying to create a story together. The player control the protagonist, the GM control the antagonist, the NPC the world. But if you're
Yeah.
just rolling on dice, I feel like it's almost like, I feel like you're not doing your part. Like, we try to create and we try to tell the story of those protagonists. We try to create the story of those protagonists, figure out what it is. We want to
Mhm.
focus on the interesting part, and now you're just gonna do the random stuff. Like no, I much rather if you try to come up with something that would make that story interesting. We're gonna role play a scene. The scene should have some meaning. Should be important. It's not just like, oh, just something random happened. You know what I mean? Like that takes me out and makes it too much feel like, oh, okay, we're in a game, so just
and most
rolled, something's gonna happen that has no bearing on anything.
Right.
Yeah. Most of the tables that are in books are for aspects of the game that are the least interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The random monster tables, the random loot tables, environmental effect like that's not particularly interesting to me, and I'm pretty sure I can do that better most of the time.
I'm much more interested in NPCs that I'm going to run into, and like conversations we're going to have, trouble we're going to get into with people. And part of this might also just because my bias towards having like a very humanist setting, I like, like I don't care about monsters all that much. Monsters, in my opinion, are sort of like magical items, and that I want them to be kind of rare and have a lot more like meaning and novelty to them than simply like, oh, well, the orcs live on that side of the street and the dwarves live on that side of the street, and like this kind of, I don't know. I don't care about running into monsters. I want to talk to people, that's
you want to keep the fantastical element fantastical. You don't want to make them mundane by making them everywhere.
Yeah. And you actually a long time ago had a great video about this, about how humans make the best monsters, because it's a lot scarier when people are doing evil things than it is when monsters are doing it. You expect monsters to do that.
Yeah. And it's much more interesting too, because like you can see yourself in those people. They can have like motivation that are understandable. I think that's a big thing. And on the Justin, we addressed your comment that you made before stream already. Matt and Nick said that they were considering getting tits for themselves. So
100%.
Yeah,
confirmed.
But like those tables, like, and I'm not opposed to it, and some people like can use them in a more clever way. They're gonna roll the table sometime, but it doesn't mean that the thing that they roll happen right now. It's just gonna mean, oh, that's gonna happen at some point, and sometimes like they're gonna go through the challenge of like, oh, something is random happening, but then they gotta think about like, why is it happening, and try to figure out some justification, and then it just throw a curve in your story that maybe you didn't. So in that sense, I don't mind them that much, and I can also see like some random table, when they're a good one, can have value in the sense that even if I'm not gonna roll on it, I can read it, and now like those are ideas that can be my
now
mind.
I have ideas.
That's
and I
so
can just
much more
go through
interesting.
it. I can just go through it in my mind, like, and like they're kind of seed of idea that I can play with, explore with, and stuff like that. And I kind of like, we're talking about like rotating the apple. I can also like roll a die in my head in a sense, like pick from a hat a few options in my head and say, oh, this happened, something somewhat random, but also that make this moment in the story, in the narrative that we're going through, make this moment interesting, like that add something, not just like a distract from what the player or the characters want to do or trying to do. I think that's
fully agree.
And I think that's a big part of to bring back to it, like having people like getting immersed, having them being active and reactive, stay in character, because that's also used in a sense, when you're a GM, the character that you're in is the world, and you also stay in character.
Yeah, you are as a GM, you are the world, and you are the NPC in a scene where that NPC is talking. You're playing that character in that moment. The rest of the time you are the world.
And even those NPC, they're like part of the world, in some they live in that world. They're like it's like a fabric of it's like a big blanket, and your different spot in that blanket, like people like spiritual people talk about. There's this thing in RPG when GMing, and it's like the character like or the only thing that are not part of that blanket in a sense, but north of Rockies, north of the Rockies. Say when I use exotic monster, it tend to be singular occasion and often an actual focus of an adventure. It makes them more unique and memorable. I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
There's some
Absolutely.
monster. There's some monster I don't care like making them as people. You know, like orcs. Orcs are
Yeah.
people basically. You know what I mean? Like because like
Yeah.
they're sapient. They have like some form of culture and stuff like that. So they're like savage people that live over there in the mountain, whatever.
Right.
But when you do like
a giant,
or purple worm.
Yeah.
purple worm, yeah.
Yeah, that's you don't go like on purple worm every weekend.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
That's-
it just become like mundane.
But that's
Yeah.
kind of the focus of our first book that we're making, the golems thing, is that
Yep.
these are kind of like, the idea is you can kind of center an entire adventure or series of adventures around that. Because
Yes.
monsters are cool and they shouldn't just be Pokemon to throw at your players, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that when people like somebody like tell this game and it's just like all about like like they're going to the fucking DMG, you know, they start at the fucking Arakokra and then they end at the what's the fucking Z monster.
The what?
Whatever.
Oh yeah, what's a Z monster? Or
yeah.
I want to use this. Oh, this monster has a really cool ability. I just want to use it. It makes no sense that this creature is here,
Yeah.
or would show up in this session. But I really just want to see it.
Yeah, but it just become like this monster of the week of campaign.
Monster,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and I get that gets boring so fast for me because you know at some point like I said I just said, you know, we're telling the story of those protagonists, those characters are protagonists.
Right.
We focus on the part that are interesting in their life. Like I don't mind doing the dungeon delving at the start of their career, you know what I mean? Or some once in a while you're gonna go in a dungeon, but you have a reason to go there. You know, I need to go get this fucking MacGuffin that isn't there. Like okay, now we get like a dungeon crawl. But I don't want to do like week after week after week of fucking dungeon crawl. Like we go to this dungeon and we go to this dungeon. What I'll do, I do like I have like a map of all the dungeon of the realm.
All the dungeons.
And I go to you know,
that's the thing that is so why I don't like the D&D style of why that D&D style is that the world makes no sense in that case, because it's like there's just a bunch of you know all these hexes, not all of them I know, but many of these hexes are going to be populated with like the Tomb of Annihilation or you know or something, you know, it's like it's like why were these things built? Like it's a fantasy world in which I can't suspend my disbelief. Exactly.
Yeah, if it's this like if it's this dangerous, if the world is this hazardous to life, no civilization
it's just like these pits to hell like everywhere, you know, like
right. Yeah, the apocalypse has already happened.
There's also like this whole issue with the magic being like so prevalent, but like nobody does nothing interesting.
Nobody
with it.
does it, and
it's like it's part of the world. It's basically a technology, but like it's not used. You know, it's like people know it's there, like a magic shop and shit, but like
it's happening everywhere, but where the scene is happening. You know? Like for some reason, inexplicably.
Yeah, people still do really weird, mundane things, even though magic is everywhere. Like, okay.
Like magic is everywhere, but it didn't influence the world that much. You know what I mean? Like, there's no thought has been put behind it. And the reason also I'm another big fan of D&D is like I think that the D20 is too swingy, and then you play this like competent at something, but like you have like a +3, but you like but 20 like a 1 to 20 is gonna be chance. You know what I mean? So like I find like I find the balance between the randomness and the character contribution is too skewed toward the random.
Right. No, I agree. And that was I think it was Alchemical Raker was posting about how the D20 is not actually swingy because you've got, you know, a general percentage chance, you know, that you're gonna hit, and that's modified and blah blah blah. It's like it's basically like you throw 2d8 in there or whatever, like neither one is more swingy. It's like, but the D20, it's like, especially in the OSR games, because your bonuses are so low, and the AC is, you know, like the worst AC you can have is 10, you know, with ascending AC, obviously. It's like you can have like a 10 or whatever like that. Like it does just suck. Like we were in this session, we were fighting, having a fight, and all of the player characters were all just rolling 3, 4 over and over and over again, and the enemies are doing the same thing. So it's like nothing's happening right now.
Yeah,
I was like,
and
this sucks.
that's break the immersion at some point, because
Yeah.
Right.
you try, you've been combat. Okay, I'm gonna try. Yeah, I miss. Oh, I mean, just like I tried to stab him, and I just get in this cloak, whatever, and just like. But at some point, you just say, oh fuck, man, I missed again. Well, then,
Yeah.
Right.
You're not thinking, you're not in the mindset of your character anymore. That's also something I say. Like people say, oh no, role playing is describing your action. I say no, I don't like it necessarily. Like I'm not a big fan of that, and you can tell me about that. And like I see people doing those very flowery description of their action, like their miss or their hit and stuff like that. And they say, oh, that's you're role playing when you do that. I say no. For me, when you're role playing, you're in the mindset of your character, right? When you put a lot of focus on describing those action, I know you're no longer going to be in the mindset of your character. You're going to be thinking about your next description. You know what I mean? Either you're gonna have a list of it that you're gonna go through, or you're gonna be like doing this little like writing exercise in your mind. So next time it's your turn, you have like something cool again to say. You know what I mean? So for me, like that almost like break immersion.
Yeah.
Do you think of that? Do you think I'm off base on that? Or?
No, I mean I hadn't thought about that before. I think an over reliance. I think I'm definitely not opposed to a vivid description for very interesting or unexpected or climactic things.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you cast a spell, I would like you to describe what the spell looks like.
That's fair.
And sort of what you're doing.
I'm not talking about like the round combat. When you're gonna have like fucking 10 round of combat when you just standing there like toe to toe with the enemy trying to
hit. Right. Yeah, we're all rolling threes. Now we're simulating a video game where our animations are clearly hitting the hitbox.
Yeah,
of the character,
it's like it's Morrowind,
Yeah, it's Morrowind.
Bam.
Still such a great game.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are right. I know I have fallen into that trap where like, okay, I want to say something, and getting bogged down in thinking about that more than my character's perspective. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think that can be a good idea as well. Like in Warhammer Fantasy, a fail in combat is still 1 damage. So I mean, if both sides are terrible, someone is getting to get knocked out. Yeah, and in Warhammer Fantasy, you mostly get killed from critical hit. They're very savage. Yeah, but yeah,
I do want to try that game at some point. I haven't played any of the editions, but
yeah, you see, you were mentioning earlier. I think it was Matt mentioning earlier, like oh, there's not that much alternative to D&D, so people go to OSR. Like that's one. I think it's pretty decent, but even there, like finding a game of that is pretty hard. Like people want to go to D&D or one of these derivatives.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy is. I don't know a lot about it, but the grittiness, the grime of the world, it seems so much more interesting to me. Also, the aesthetic of it also is very appealing. Sort of Holy Roman Empire, and you have the Egyptians down south, and the dwarves in their hold, the undead vampire.
Yeah,
the vampire counts. Is that right? The vampire counts.
The vampire counts.
Yeah,
and the magic also got some kind of like a risk to it. So there's that also that can be interesting. That I think is big plus versus D&D. It's not the system I'm the most familiar with, but it's interesting. It's pretty. It's not bad. Honestly, it's pretty good.
I did pick up. It's not Warhammer Fantasy, but I picked up. It's called Blackbirds. It's a big, thick book, but I think it uses Zweihander rules, which I think was like Warhammer Fantasy with the serial numbers shaved off, right?
Yeah, it was Zweihander was designed before like Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition was announced, and it was like kind of like a retro clone of Warhammer Fantasy, but like then Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition was going back to the basic as well. So it kind of like a lost
Got
his,
it.
but Zweihander is terribly written. It's the rules are, the book is very thick, and there's a lot of like a useless detail, and the
Yeah.
rules are poorly explained. So I wish for you that Blackbird is written better.
I hope so. I hope so. I have not delved through it. I think I've told this story before, and I'm probably gonna mess it up because I don't even remember what made me so angry specifically. But I was at a convention. I was at Gen Con one year, and I played, which was already a mistake. I played a session of The Dark Eye.
Yeah.
Which I'm told is Germany's most popular.
Well, it
game.
used to be Germany's most popular RPG. I think now 5e took over.
Yikes! But I remember I was told, I don't remember what the mechanic was, but I wanted to make a skill. I wanted to make a skill roll, and I was told I had to make like 2 or 3 different die rolls to accomplish a skill roll. I was seething at the at the table. I was so mad. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Now that guy may be lying, or maybe I was retarded and didn't hear him properly. But I don't think that's possible. I would love if someone out there knows about The Dark Eye and can tell me what the hell, if that guy was on base or not. Because I had to make some sort of like aptitude. I'd like compare some kind of aptitude with an attribute and then like actually make the skill check. It didn't make any sense to me because I was fuming. But like, wow, I've never seen a game have to ask you to do multiple die rolls for a single skill resolution.
Never seen either. Like I'm not familiar with The Dark Eye. This one like I never got to check.
Well, I would not recommend it from my detailed experience with the game.
The Joe Anderson say like one of the worst thing about poorly written rules, in my opinion, it needlessly adds to page count more time than not. Yeah, that's a big thing.
Fully agree.
Like brevity is the essence of wits.
Yeah,
right.
You wouldn't think that I know that saying by how I can ramble on.
Yeah, I always when people talk about crunchy systems or long page counts, I always think about that survival video game Scum. If you've seen it on Twitch, where you have it looks so autistic. In your like inventory screen, you have like your full body readout, your different chemical levels, your blood, your
potassium levels,
potassium levels, your blood sugar. Like you're not really simulating the game unless you can calculate your percentage fingernail growth increase based on calorie intake.
That's more detailed than I calculate in real life. That's that's something also like going back to when I was talking about like the quality of the discourse in RPG. When people talk about game, that's often sometimes like, oh, you really got for your money words because the book is 900 pages. Yeah, that's not a good sign.
You really wasted your money.
Yeah. Like I don't mind like I think nowadays like price of games are too expensive, especially some in Canada. That's fucking double the fucking price.
Yeah.
But I think people like are going a bit insane with it, especially with PDF. Fuck's sake, man! $30 for a PDF.
That's insane.
It's so stupid. Yeah.
But yeah, like if the game is good, I don't mind like paying like $60 for a good game, and it's not gonna be based on like there's like 200 page versus 500 page. If it's just like a full page of fluff, like just like what are you gonna do with those?
Make
500 pages of dog shit.
Use your pages, use your word count, judiciously.
Yeah.
Don't fill it with bullshit. Do not fill it with your potassium chart, your potassium levels chart, or whatever.
And don't take fucking like 3 pages to explain me something that I always like talk about I often talk about Burning Wheel, the mechanical resolution, like explaining the mechanical resolution from once you landed a hit to how much damage you get is 40 pages.
That's insane.
I have Burning Wheel. I love that you made that video. I have Burning Wheel, and I have the whatever the blue book is. It's like
The
some
character burner.
yeah, like on the one hand, it's like it's such a beautiful book, and it is well written, and it's like it's something else, and I have to, as much as the guy is insufferable, I have to respect the autism in it, but I will never play that game. I think there's some interesting inspirations. I think the bits are cool to think about. I really like how they do what is it, the life paths, in that there's the I don't think I've ever seen a better I've never seen a better and a worse in the same vein, like implied setting, like emerge from the writing. Especially for like the orcs and the dwarves and the elves, the non-human races. But like that game is like untenable to me.
But it's a big inspiration to me when I write.
It's weird, right? It's like a fucking train wreck, and yet it's so well. It seems, I mean, I guess I wouldn't know. I've never put it to the test, but it seems like it's so well put together. It's just
there's a lot of like good idea, it's like a mine, a gold mine, but you have to take a lot of there's a lot of like slag and shit to take
right.
out.
It's like but it's like something no one, at least I didn't want. It's like, this is the most beautiful wooden car I've ever made. Like I have no need for this, and this is completely counterintuitive to what a car is for.
Yeah,
this is not helpful.
But that's the thing also, like going back to like when you talk about like the system, we see like those people that are fucking insufferable, like that try something different, like, and like Burning Wheel or Dungeon World, or Dungeon World was just like something from Baker, like the Apocalypse World.
Oh yeah.
But and like you have those other games like Laser and Feeling and stuff like that. Like there are some people trying other game, but it's always like something that is, well, all right, you did something.
Well, also there's such a huge disconnect, and I think it is. I think it is in part back to the point I had made initially, that you can't really experience or consume up until very recently other people's actual play sessions, and even right now, significantly under 1% of 1% of games. Maybe 1% of 1% of games are up on YouTube. But you have something that is convoluted, and say what you will, like a Burning Wheel. It's a beautifully written book, and I guarantee you, every single one of those games, even ones run by Luke Crane, are probably going to be absolute fucking dog shit and indistinguishable from a D&D game. The mechanic is different. The intention and the focus on immersion, I promise you, will not be there. It will be, style over substance, an overuse and a misuse of sort of rule of cool, and we're just doing, we're just fucking around. We're just sort of playing a game. And oh my god, he didn't roll a 20, he rolled multiple sixes. And
Burning Wheel, you're very much so playing a game. Everything is gamified. Like
everything is gamified.
Like your role play is gamified in the sense that you're gonna get those bits, you're gonna get those meta currency, and
meta currency, the Artha, you need the certain it's but like, again, you can write the most beautiful book, you can have the most,
a bit pretentious to my taste, but
I would say a more than a bit for my taste, but
I can tolerate a lot of pretension.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to wrap it up. My my dog is getting restless.
Okay.
Same with me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Did you have
me
any
too.
final word that you want to before leaving? That you want to?
I just want to hear more soon about Winter Dawn. You know,
I'm
I
still
would love.
working on
I
it.
would.
Art.
Yeah. So would love to as time goes on and you you know keep chipping away at it as you get closer and closer. Would love to hype up your stuff. You know, just like we were all saying earlier. You know, people who have strong opinions who want who want to make something that's awesome. You know, you're making a game. You know, Primeval Fantasy has his YouTube channel, and I can't remember if he was sort of hinting at he was going to make something. I certainly hope so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're doing stuff. You're making our own stuff, and yeah, would love to chat again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I often like put the link to the work document I have for Winter Dawn, because like I have like the basic rule and combat and even advanced combat now up on a website there that people can look at the kind of SRD.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna update it like when I'm working on character creation.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I haven't seen anyone do that. You know, by the way, having that like as you're working on it, have like an SRD. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm expecting Mr. Mac's book to be 750 page. Every other word to be in French. Yeah. No, not quite. Yeah. And what about you, Matt? Anything you want to say before leaving?
No, just thank you for having us on. This was a lot of fun, and definitely
great.
looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, like I think it was a great talk, man, and we should talk again soon. Or
yes, sir.
Later.
Yeah, we'll love to bring you on over on our channel.
Yeah, I'll be glad to come. I wanted to thank everybody that watched live, and I wanted to talk everybody that are gonna watch on the replay. And thank you, Matt and Nick, for joining me. And like I said, I really enjoy your content, and I think you're doing a good job. And I hope our message will be able to reach more people over time.
Absolutely.
Likewise, man. This is great.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
You too.